Chapter 3885. Among the newcomers in the Blue Cloud Pavilion, Lin Yi and his gang were the most powerful. After the battle yesterday, there was no doubt about it. Whether it was Meng Jueguang or Murong Zhen, they would only be looking for trouble if they fought them alone. However, if the two of them worked together, the situation would become a little tricky. Meng Jueguang was about to be promoted to the third pavilion leader of the Welcome Pavilion. Be it his power or influence, both would increase by a notch. Now that he had Murong Zhen, an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm, and Meng Tong, they would have two experts at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm if they took the Meridian Heart-Shattering Pill. A formation like this was already invincible in front of the newcomers. From Meng Jueguang's point of view, even if Lin Yi did not rely on the golden pill to send Murong Zhen flying during the battle, and purely relied on his own strength, there was nothing to worry about. Two peak early stage foundation building experts working together, how could they not be able to defeat a mere Lin Yi? As for Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, these two early-stage foundation-building experts, Meng Jueguang no longer cared about them. Once they lost Lin Yi's protection, these two would only be stepping stones for Murong Zhen and Meng Tong to step on. Two peak early-stage foundation-building experts? Interesting. Lin Yi shook his head and smiled indifferently. He did not seem to be worried at all. The people that posed a fatal threat to him were the South Heaven Gate and Su Lingchong. As for Meng Jueguang and Murong Zhen, who were right in front of him, he had already categorized them as shrimp soldiers and crab generals. They were nothing to worry about. Even with his current strength, it was more than enough to deal with them. Besides, the next two heart-devouring exquisite herbs would soon mature. Once he successfully refined the foundation-building pill, he would immediately advance to the mid-stage foundation-building realm. Murong Zhen and Meng Tong, if they were not shrimp soldiers and crab generals in his eyes, what else could they be? The rookie challenge had ended. In less than a month's time, the welcoming pavilion did not arrange any assessment tasks for the rookies. Only after the trial of elixirs had ended would the fifth segment of the newcomer assessment officially begin. Murong Zhen and Meng Jueguang teaming up would not affect Lin Yi in the short term. Even if these people wanted to work together to do something, they would have to wait until the fifth round of the newcomer assessment. This period of time was the best opportunity for the other rookies to recuperate after the long and tiring rookie challenge competition. At the same time, it was the best opportunity for them to nurture their elixir seeds. After all, they had nothing else to do during this period of time. There was no newcomer assessment mission, and even the 3-month mining contract signed with Spirit Jade Hall had already expired. It just so happened that he could focus on cultivating the last batch of spiritual medicine seeds without any distractions. This was also the initial plan of many rookies. In the first 2 months of the challenge, they had only experimented with a small number of spiritual herb seeds to gain experience. Most of their efforts were left for the final month. How many points they could obtain in this segment, or whether or not they could protect their points from being deducted, all depended on their performance. The days passed one by one. The rookies rushed to the Pill Hall's Spirit Medicine Nursery before the deadline. Overall, the trial of elixirs was very beneficial to the rookies, especially to the rookies from Blue Cloud Pavilion who had the worst conditions. It was exactly the same as what he had expected. It was a completely deceptive segment. Even if they had the last month to cultivate with all their might, the final result was that besides Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, both of them had submitted 6 spiritual herb seeds. Other than that, the one who did the best was Meng Tong, but he only managed to cultivate a total of 3 spiritual herb seeds. The others generally only managed to cultivate 1 or 2 spiritual herb seeds. There were even quite a number of people who ate duck eggs. In other words, according to the calculation of points for the trial of elixirs, other than Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, even Meng Tong, who had the best results, would have some points deducted in this segment. As for the others, needless to say, it was even more dismal. Fortunately, these people were quite sensible when choosing the spirit herb seeds. They only chose at least 10 spirit herb seeds. If they had chosen more than that, they might have lost more than 10 points in this segment. They wouldn't even have a place to cry. However, under the reminder of someone, the rookies recalled that when choosing the spiritual herb seeds, not all the rookies had only submitted 10 spiritual herb seeds. A certain impressive Blue Cloud Pavilion rookie had submitted a maximum of 40 spiritual herb seeds in one go. However, now that the deadline had arrived, this pretentious head of Blue Cloud Pavilion's #1 rookie had not submitted a single spiritual herb seed that had been cultivated into a living form. This was the mentality of most people. Even these cultivators were no exception. If they were unhappy with their own losses, they would definitely find a way to balance it out with others. At least in the trial of elixirs, Lin Yi was definitely the one who could make them feel the most at ease. Back then he had drawn a total of 40 spiritual herb seeds, but now there was no movement at all. That meant that this guy would have 40 assessment points deducted all of a sudden. To be able to see the number 1 rookie suffer such a setback, what a delightful thing to see. This was originally Lin Yi's matter. No matter how many points he had lost, it had nothing to do with the others. However, under the deliberate incitement of people like Meng Jueguang and Meng Tong, it became extremely popular. Especially on the day of the deadline, all the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies came out in full force. They did not do anything else just to watch Lin Yi suffer. Seeing Meng Jueguang leading the Blue Cloud Pavilion rookies to surround the entrance of Lin Yi's cave abode early in the morning, the bitter senior, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai could not help but look at each other. This bunch of people must be sick in the head. Instead of cultivating, they came here to watch boss. They must have nothing better to do. Even if the boss loses 40 points, it's only a matter of time before he can take first place. What does this bunch of weaklings have to do with it? Xiao Hongsai's face was filled with displeasure as he looked at everyone's gloating expression. Even the honest senior at this moment was filled with righteous indignation. Meng Jueguang is too despicable. He is stirring up so many people to fan the flames. He is just trying to get rid of the prestige that junior brother Lin has built up in the previous rounds. This way he can cover up his own incompetence. Although they stood on Lin Yi's side, even the bitter senior could not help but break out in cold sweat for Lin Yi. Chapter 3886. If they want to watch the show, then let them watch. Who knows who will be the one making a fool of themselves later. Xiao Ran, who was at the side, didn't seem worried at all. His and Xiao Hongsai's spiritual herb seeds were cultivated by Lin Yi. The two of them only handed in 6 seeds, and this was already deliberately holding back. If it wasn't for the fear of arousing suspicion by handing in too many seeds, the two of them could have handed in even more. After all, with the poor conditions of the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion, it was already very rare to cultivate 6 spiritual herb seeds out of 10. If they handed in more than that, it would be a little too ridiculous. Moreover, with Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongsai's current positions, the points from the spiritual herb trial were already insignificant to them. There was no need to arouse suspicion for a mere point. The spiritual herb seeds that Lin Yi cultivated for the two of them had such a high survival rate, but his own spiritual herb seeds were completely annihilated. How was this possible? Based on Xiao Ran's understanding of Lin Yi, this boss of his might be deliberately hiding it so that some clowns would be humiliated. Not only Xiao Ran but Li Jingming also had the same thought in the crowd, waiting for Meng Jueguang's group to be slapped in the face. Amidst the bustling crowd, the door of cave abode number 1 at the foot of the mountain finally opened. When Lin Yi saw the crowd blocking his door, he was obviously a little stunned. Oh, so early? Lin Yi smiled slightly, but his next words immediately made everyone's faces darken. I heard such a big commotion just now, and I thought a group of beggars had appeared and blocked my cave abode to beg for food. I didn't expect it to be you guys. How interesting. Beggars. You're the one who's begging. Everyone cursed in their hearts. However, when they thought about it carefully, weren't they just beggars blocking the door to beg for food? Sending themselves to the door to be ridiculed. Just thinking about it, they were really cheap. At this moment, Meng Jueguang couldn't help but say, Lin Yi, have you forgotten what day it is today? Today? Lin Yi thought for a moment. Suddenly he slapped his head and said, That's right, senior brother Meng, you've reminded me. Is today the day of the Spirit Jade distribution? In the past few times, you always gave me the smallest. This time you can't be biased anymore. Also, if anyone wants to exchange Spirit Jades with me, hurry up and line up to bid. First come, first served. Fuck me. What the fuck was going on? Was this kid really stupid or just pretending to be stupid? Meng Jueguang was stunned for a long time. He was already cursing in his heart. However, Murong Zhen, who was beside him, couldn't help but burst into laughter. Putting aside his strength and standpoint, Lin Yi was quite an interesting person. Lin Yi, don't try to change the topic. I have to remind you that today is the last day of the trial of spiritual medicine. Previously you submitted 40 spiritual medicine seeds in one go, but now you haven't submitted a single one. Do you know what the consequences will be? Meng Jueguang snorted coldly with a straight face. When everyone heard this, they instantly became spirited. Here comes the show. What consequences? Isn't it just a deduction of 40 assessment points? Lin Yi said with a playful expression. Deducting 40 assessment points? Humph, wasting 40 spiritual medicine seeds that my spiritual medicine nursery has painstakingly cultivated? Junior brother, aren't you thinking too simply of the consequences? Before Meng Jueguang could say anything, someone in the distance had already responded on his behalf with a cold snort. The crowd couldn't help but be shocked. Hearing the voice, they looked over and saw 3 figures slowly approaching from afar. Beside him were 2 familiar faces, Kang Xiaoming and Zhong Pingliang. The one in the middle was the leader. The person in the middle was the sissy manager of the spiritual medicine nursery that they met in the pill hall when they distributed the spiritual medicine seeds. Why was this person here? Lin Yi raised an eyebrow when he saw this, but when he saw this situation, even if he used his toes to think, he could guess that this sissy manager's sudden arrival was something that Kang Mingming and Meng Jueguang had discussed beforehand. Senior brother Bitter quickly gave Lin Yi a look. This person had come with ill intentions. They had to be careful today, otherwise something big would really happen. Lin Yi, however, smiled non-committally and looked on coldly from the sidelines, waiting to see what would happen. When the sissy manager of the spiritual medicine nursery approached them, the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion all perked up. No matter how sissy this person was, he was still someone who held authority in the pill hall. Now that he had personally come to cause trouble for Lin Yi, the excitement today was really not in vain. Kang Mingming walked over and said with a chuckle, "Boss Lin Yi, when I was tallying up the assessment points, I discovered that all 40 of your spiritual medicine seeds were wiped out. I felt that this matter was a little strange, so I specially invited the manager of the spiritual medicine nursery over to take a look. This is my duty, I hope you don't mind." This guy was really despicable. Xiao Hongkai, Xiao Ran, and the others raised their middle fingers in unison. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched when he heard this, but it wasn't because of Kang Mingming's despicable face. It was because this was the first time he had heard this name. The manager of the spiritual medicine nursery? This name was truly worthy of this manager's sissy temperament. Which other man would come up with such a fucking name? The manager of the spiritual medicine nursery carefully sized up Lin Yi with her phoenix eyes. She raised her thumb and middle finger and said in a strange tone, "Junior brother, when you reported 40 spiritual medicine seeds previously, I reminded you out of goodwill, right?" "That's right." Lin Yi nodded lightly. "I clearly told you beforehand that the newcomers in Blue Cloud Pavilion can't nurture any spiritual medicine seeds with such conditions, but you still stubbornly chose it. Back then, I thought you were an alchemist and had some ability, but I didn't expect all 40 spiritual medicine seeds to be wiped out. Do you know what this means?" The manager's voice became increasingly flirtatious, almost comparable to Murong Zhen's. "I don't know. Please enlighten me, manager spiritual medicine nursery." Lin Yi was still calm and composed. Every spiritual medicine seed, even if it's mass-produced, is still something that the entire spirit medicine nursery has put in a lot of effort. This time, the higher-ups have given the order to take them out for the newcomer assessment. Even if you know that you'll lose more than 80% of the spiritual medicine nursery, I have nothing to say. At this point, the manager's voice suddenly turned cold. However, you clearly know that you don't have the ability, but you still insisted on reporting 40 spiritual medicine seeds. This is not normal. Can I take it that this junior brother is deliberately destroying the fruits of my spirit medicine nursery's hard work? Without waiting for Lin Yi's response, Meng Jueguang already chimed in, "That's right. Although I, Meng Jueguang, am the newcomer manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion, I will not blindly shield or be partial to this kind of irresponsible behavior that damages the precious resources of the 3 pavilions. Manager Spiritual Medicine Nursery, I promise you that you can do whatever you want with Lin Yi. We will do our best to cooperate." Chapter 3887. "Very well, then I'll have to trouble Steward Meng to subdue this Lin Yi first, then report this to the Pill Division's elder," the spiritual flower steward said decisively. He wasn't in cahoots with Meng Jueguang and the others, but he really felt sorry for those spiritual medicine seeds. There were 40 of them, and they were all destroyed by a newcomer who didn't know what was good for him. It was a reckless waste of resources. If he didn't punish them as a warning to others, what would happen to the spirit medicine nursery if the newcomer assessment was held in the future and everyone followed suit? "All right," Meng Jueguang suddenly shouted. Before he finished his sentence, he immediately attacked Lin Yi. The powerful aura around his body was clearly visible, shocking everyone present. Middle stage foundation building. Even Lin Yi couldn't help but be slightly stunned. Meng Jueguang's strength was only at the peak of the early stage foundation building, the same level as Murong Zhen. Now, he had actually broken through to the middle stage foundation building. Before the crowd could react, Meng Jueguang's claw had already reached Lin Yi's shoulder. Although he didn't use any powerful martial arts techniques, he didn't hold back at all. If Lin Yi hadn't broken through to the middle stage foundation building before this, Based on his strong performance of slapping Murong Zhen in the closing battle of the challenge, Meng Jueguang might not have dared to fight him. If he couldn't defeat Lin Yi in public, then his position as the eldest senior brother would have come to an end, and he would never have a chance to make a comeback. However, now that he had an absolute advantage in terms of strength and encountered such a good excuse, if he didn't quickly teach Lin Yi, his nemesis, a lesson, then he, Meng Jueguang, would no longer be Meng Jueguang. He might as well change his name to Bitter. Today Meng Jueguang was going to show everyone who had the final say in Blue Cloud Pavilion. Was it Lin Yi, the blind and pretentious newcomer, or was it him, Meng Jueguang, the big senior brother in charge? An expert in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm, even if he did not use any powerful martial skills, he could completely crush Lin Yi's shoulder with all his might, even if Lin Yi did not take the golden elixir. Even a genuine expert at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm would suffer a great loss. However, before Meng Jueguang's claw could grab hold of him, Lin Yi's shoulder suddenly exploded with a strong burst of vital energy, catching Meng Jueguang off guard and causing him to suffer a hidden loss. Meng Jueguang felt a wave of pain and hurriedly withdrew his hand. He was shocked and fearful in his heart, but on the surface he put on an act and said, "Lin Yi, I'm saving you some face, so I didn't use my full strength. If you don't know what's good for you, then you will be regarded as disobeying the 3 pavilions. Don't blame me for being rude. Hehe, in that case I really have to thank senior brother Meng for holding back. Otherwise, my shoulder would have been crippled, right?" Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and laughed. "That's for sure. Junior brother Lin, you can't be so arrogant to think that you can face a middle stage expert alone, right?" Meng Jueguang sneered contemptuously. Middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm? He could even kill a peak late stage Foundation establishment realm in an instant. Why would he be afraid of a new middle stage Foundation establishment realm cultivator? Lin Yi couldn't help but laugh. If it weren't for everyone's eyes, he wouldn't have been able to. Just based on the fact that Meng Jueguang dared to attack him just now, he had already made a move to kill him. Since he was able to beat Yu Zhe half to death back then, dealing with Meng Jueguang was naturally not a problem. At this time, Xiao Hongkai suddenly stood up and said, "Boss, if one is not enough, how about counting me in?" Xiao Ran also opened his mouth and said, "Count me in too." Seeing the two of them jump out, the other newcomers were instantly shocked. Things seemed to be getting out of control. However, seeing this, Meng Jueguang did not get angry. Instead, he laughed and said, "You want to rebel? Don't blame me for not reminding you. Capturing Lin Yi to see the Pill Hall Elder is the consensus of Pavilion Head Hu in the Pill Hall's upper echelons. From the beginning to the end, there is reason and evidence. Whoever dares to disobey will be regarded as openly rebelling. According to the 3 pavilions' rules, they can be killed without mercy." As he spoke, Meng Jueguang gave Murong Zhen and Meng Tong a look, and each of them stared at Lin Yi and the rest. This time they had the right and proper sword in their hands. Even if they killed Lin Yi and the others, the 3 pavilions wouldn't hold them accountable. On the other hand, if Lin Yi and the others dared to fight back, they'd be committing treason. Even if they died, they'd die for nothing. Wait. Senior brother Meng, please wait, there's a misunderstanding." Seeing that the situation was not good, senior brother Ku Bai hurriedly stepped forward to mediate. He was originally a little worried about today's matter, and now, the situation had indeed developed in the most dangerous direction. Meng Jueguang had clearly set a trap for Lin Yi. For a hot-blooded young man like Lin Yi, once he lost his composure and was agitated to the point of committing a crime of rebellion, his life would be over. The 3 pavilions would not let any rebel off. Misunderstanding? Everyone saw how Lin Yi fought back just now, and now you're lying through your teeth, saying it's a misunderstanding. You're protecting him so unprincipled, aren't you? Are you ready to go along with him? Meng Jueguang casually put a big hat on him. Did you secretly sell those 40 seeds? He had already realized that this was an excellent opportunity to bury Lin Yi and the rest, including senior brother Ku Bai. Senior brother Ku Bai was suddenly speechless. He was not good with words. In this situation, if he said anything wrong, he might be killed. He did not dare to speak carelessly. "Take them down." Without giving Lin Yi and the rest a chance to think of countermeasures, Meng Jueguang ordered and took the lead to attack Lin Yi again. This time he did not underestimate his enemy, nor did he intend to hold back. Gloomy Bone Claw 23 forms. Gloomy Bone Claw, as its name suggested, was an extremely sinister martial arts technique. It was said that when cultivated to an extremely high level, the bones of one's entire hand would begin to change shape and gradually become a real gloomy bone claw. As for Meng Jueguang, Although his hand had not completely turned into a non-human claw, compared to a normal person's hand, it was already very deformed. This was a sign of strength. Meng Jueguang attacked Lin Yi again, and the other newcomers had already moved aside. Senior brother Ku Bai, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai on the other hand, were being closely watched by Murong Zhen and Meng Tong. Although Lin Yi had always been very strong, and could even suppress Murong Zhen, a master at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment realm, no one at the scene would think that he was Meng Jueguang's opponent. After all, Meng Jueguang was a master in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment realm. They were not on the same level at all. Even Li Jingming and Zhong Pingliang couldn't help but feel a little restless. If Lin Yi really could not defeat Meng Jueguang, they would help Lin Yi even if they had to expose their identities as spies. Chapter 3888. Meng Jueguang's eyes couldn't help but twitch as he stroked his right hand, which was slightly fractured. He didn't get the upper hand again in this exchange. Lin Yi was just a kid from the secular world. Did he really have such unfathomable strength? Meng Jueguang looked at Lin Yi again with a hint of fear in his eyes. Although Lin Yi had been going against him since he came to Heaven Class Island, this was his first time fighting with Lin Yi. The result of the test also proved that Meng Tong and the others had suffered under Lin Yi's hands time and time again, and it wasn't without reason. This result made him secretly shocked, but his goal had been achieved. Brothers, Lin Yi has disobeyed the orders of the higher-ups. This is considered a rebellion. Hurry up and take down this traitor. Those who respond will be heavily rewarded. Meng Jueguang immediately called out with a cold smile. In his eyes, the fact that Lin Yi dared to defy him in front of everyone with the warning he'd given just now meant that Lin Yi was a dead man. There was no need for him to waste any more energy on him. His archenemy, who had troubled him for 4 months, actually fell for the trap so easily. The situation developed so smoothly that even Meng Jueguang himself didn't expect it. It even felt a little unreal. No matter what, he'd finally gotten rid of a huge threat today. So what if Lin Yi was strong? He was just a brainless idiot. He'd just need to set up a trap and he'd be sent to his death. As for the rest of the Blue Cloud Pavilion newcomers, if they could get rid of the #1 newcomer, Lin Yi, not only would they get the heavy reward that Meng Jueguang mentioned, but they could also get rid of this abnormality. At least they wouldn't look so useless. It was killing 2 birds with 1 stone. Just as Meng Jueguang was feeling very pleased with himself, the surrounding newcomers had surrounded Lin Yi's group. The 2 spies, Li Jingming and Zhong Pingliang, couldn't help but want to help. Suddenly Lin Yi smiled. Traitor? Senior brother Meng is so sinister. But I would like to ask, what is my crime? Lin Yi asked with a faint smile. Deliberately destroying the precious resources of the 3 pavilions, and disobeying the orders of the higher-ups, isn't that enough to be a traitor? Meng Jueguang snorted. Hearing this, Lin Yi smiled even more playfully. Let's not talk about the rest. Just the first one, deliberately destroying the precious resources of the 3 pavilions, where is the evidence? Meng Jueguang sneered and didn't say anything. He extended his hand and made an inviting gesture to the spiritual flower manager. This kind of thing didn't need him to waste his breath. You clearly know that you don't have the ability to do so, but you still went ahead and warned us in advance. You insisted on choosing 40 spiritual medicine seeds, but in the end, you didn't even manage to grow a single one. Isn't that proof? The spiritual flower manager said with an unfriendly expression. Lin Yi shook his head with a light smile. Manager Ling Hua, everything you've said is correct, but there's one thing you're wrong about. What is it? Yi frowned. Not a single one has been cultivated. Who gave you this information? As far as I know, today's the deadline. We won't be able to make a decision until sundown, right? Lin Yi said seriously. Meng Jueguang was amused and said mockingly, so what? To this day, could it be that you can still conjure up living elixir seeds? If you can only make 1 or 2, I advise you not to embarrass yourself. Living spirit herb seeds could only be cultivated under special conditions in the spirit medicine nursery. So, everyone including Meng Jueguang had long believed that even if Lin Yi's 40 spirit herb seeds weren't completely wiped out, they were almost all dead. It was impossible to cultivate them in batches on the last day. This was something no one could do. Indeed, even Lin Yi couldn't do the latter, but the former was a piece of cake. And senior brother Meng, if the results I hand in can satisfy you, what will you say about today's matter? Lin Yi said with a meaningful smile. Satisfy us? Meng Jueguang looked at Lin Yi's fearless expression and couldn't help but shiver. He couldn't help but start to mutter. Did the kid really wait until today to hand over the seed? Other people wouldn't have the guts to do that, but with Lin Yi's attitude of showing off all the time, it wasn't a possibility that could be ruled out. Meng Jueguang rolled his eyes and smiled evilly. That's simple. Your subordinates, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, have each handed in 6 spirit herb seeds. As their boss, your results can't be worse than your subordinates, right? My request shouldn't be too much, right? What senior brother Meng means is that as long as junior brother Lin also hands over 6 living spirit herb seeds, today's matter won't be his fault, right? Senior brother Ku Bai's eyes lit up. He also knew that Lin Yi helped Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai cultivate spirit herb seeds. In his opinion, even if Lin Yi really played with fire until the last day, it shouldn't be a problem for him to take out 6 living spirit herb seeds. 6. Junior brother Ku Bai, do you have a pig's brain? Don't you understand human language? Meng Jueguang snorted coldly. Next to him, Meng Tong jumped out and said with a smile, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai were able to hand in 6 seeds when they only received 10. According to this ratio, Lin Yi has received 40 seeds, so he has to hand in at least 24 seeds. Now, do you understand my 9th cousin's meaning? When they found out that Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai had each cultivated 6 spirit herb seeds, he and Meng Jueguang suspected that the 2 of them must have cheated. Maybe they went outside to buy the seedlings. However, because they didn't have any evidence, they didn't say anything. Now they could use it to trick their boss Lin Yi. The bitter senior brother and the others immediately gasped. Out of the 40 spiritual herb seeds, they had to cultivate 24 of them to live. Even the professionals in the spirit medicine nursery couldn't do this. However, before they could refute, Meng Jueguang was already the first to say with a smile, Spirit Flower Manager, do you think this is a good way to deal with it? Since he's Manager Meng's subordinate, then naturally Manager Meng has the final say. I just want an explanation. I don't want the 40 spirit herb seeds that our spirit medicine nursery has painstakingly cultivated to be wasted, the Spirit Flower Manager said with a frosty expression. He wasn't stupid. He could already tell that Meng Jueguang was using this opportunity to cause trouble. It seemed like he wanted to clean up the spirit medicine nursery. However, this had nothing to do with him. From his point of view, the only reason he came here today was to make an example out of the others. He wanted to set a rule for the newcomer assessment in the future. Chapter 3889. If Lin Yi couldn't meet this requirement, then even if he could produce a few living spiritual medicine seeds, he would still be guilty of deliberately harming precious resources. His previous act of resistance was evidence of rebellion, enough to make him die without a burial place. Senior brother Ku Gua and the others couldn't help but look at each other. This idiot actually had the cheek to say that this was business. Then, according to his standards, shouldn't Meng Tong and the others be hung up and beaten up as a warning to others? 24 seeds. Even Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai couldn't believe that Lin Yi could produce so many seeds. Meng Jueguang was planning to use this opportunity to force Lin Yi into a dead end today. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi smiled disapprovingly. 24 seeds? I thought that senior brother Meng's requirements would be very high. I didn't expect that you would only have this little insight. How disappointing. What nonsense is this fellow talking about? Meng Jueguang and the others were stunned, then their faces were full of ridicule. Lin Yi, this pretentious leader, really didn't change. Now that he was about to die, he still couldn't change his stupid character. Lin Yi didn't continue to pay attention to them. He turned around and entered the cave abode. When he came out again, he was holding a cultivation tank that was originally distributed by the Spirit Medicine Nursery. Looking at the things in the cultivation tank, Meng Jueguang and the others couldn't help but look at each other. This cultivation tank was actually filled to the brim with 10 fresh and tender seedlings. Seeing these seedlings, Meng Jueguang and the others were only shocked. However, the sissy supervisor of the spiritual flowers was completely stunned. His pair of phoenix eyes stared straight at the seedlings, full of disbelief. There are only 10 of them. There's still a long way to go. Meng Jueguang refused to give up. However, at this moment he was feeling extremely fortunate. Fortunately, he was careful and cleverly used Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, the 2 cheaters, to make an issue out of it. Otherwise, Lin Yi would have succeeded in showing off today. He secretly kept 10 seedlings and did not hand them over until the deadline. Lin Yi probably already knew that they would come and make things difficult for him. He was really cunning. However, as the saying goes, the devil rises 10. Lin Yi's good days came to an end. He could take out 10 seedlings, but could he take out 24 seedlings at once? Even if he thought with his toes, he would know that it was simply impossible unless he cheated. Senior brother Meng, when did I say that was everything? Lin Yi looked at him as if he was looking at an idiot. He turned around and went back into the cave. I'd like to see how long you can hold on for. Before Meng Jueguang could finish his sentence, he forcefully swallowed his words. He saw Lin Yi bring out another cultivation tank. There were another 10 seedlings on it. Holy shit. Meng Jueguang's eyeballs almost popped out. Murong Zhen, Meng Tong and the rest all looked incredulous. They had the same question mark in their minds. How did this guy do it? Before they could question him, Lin Yi turned around and went back into the cave. When he came out again, he was carrying 2 cultivation tanks. One had 10 seedlings while the last one had 9 seedlings. One had 10 seedlings and the last one had 9 seedlings. A total of 39 seedlings. That should be the standard that senior brother Meng mentioned. Can we talk about what happened just now? Lin Yi's expression suddenly turned cold. He said, as the senior brother in charge of the newcomers, you attacked the newcomers without asking the right and wrong. Senior brother Meng, can you tell me what kind of crime this is? Feeling the cold murderous intent in Lin Yi's tone, even Meng Jueguang could not help but shiver. In the 3 great pavilions. Even if the other ordinary disciples attacked the newcomers, it was a serious crime. As the senior brother in charge of the newcomers, he would be punished even more if he knowingly broke the law. This was not a joke. If Lin Yi really made a big deal out of this and alerted the higher-ups of the 3 great pavilions, Meng Jueguang would not be able to bear the consequences. He would not even be able to keep his current position as the supervisor of the newcomers, let alone be promoted to the 3rd pavilion leader of the Welcome Pavilion. He would also be severely punished. By then all his hard work over the years would be ruined. At this point, everyone present was completely shocked. They thought that Lin Yi was going to be the unlucky one, but in the blink of an eye, the situation had changed completely. A total of 39 fresh and tender spiritual herb seedlings. Lin Yi's counterattack was too sudden. It was a slap to the face. Hee boss is mighty. Let's see what you idiots have to say now. Xiao Hongkai, senior brother Ku Bai, and Xiao Ran looked at each other and laughed proudly. Meng Jueguang became anxious when he saw that everyone's eyes were starting to change, as if they were going to scatter like monkeys when the tree falls. He suddenly had an idea and shouted, wait! You only received 40 spirit herb seeds, but now you suddenly took out 39 seedlings. I have every reason to suspect that you are cheating. Cheating? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows noncommittally. You have to be responsible for what you say. I advise senior brother Meng to think carefully before you speak. Otherwise, apart from attacking a newcomer and adding malicious slander, don't blame me for being merciless. Meng Jueguang thought that he had grasped the last life-saving straw. He snorted with certainty. It just so happens that the spiritual flower supervisor is here. Whether it is cheating or not, he has the right to say it. 40 spiritual herb seeds, but 39 seedlings were produced in the end. Furthermore, they were all one-off. If this was not cheating, Meng Jueguang was even willing to twist his head off and let Lin Yi kick it like a ball. From his point of view, these 39 seedlings of Lin Yi might have been bought from somewhere at a low price to make up the number. Alright, then let the spiritual flower supervisor decide. Lin Yi laughed softly and nodded calmly. While the two were talking, the spirit flower manager, the sissy, was completely immersed in the 39 seedlings Lin Yi had brought out, unable to pull himself out of it. It was only after a long while that he came back to his senses, holding his forehead with a cry. Under Meng Jueguang's ardent gaze, the spiritual flower supervisor's gaze swept between him and Lin Yi before he said, 40 spiritual herb seeds to grow 39 seedlings. Not to mention the simple and crude environment of the Blue Cloud Pavilion, even in the most suitable environment of the Spirit Medicine Nursery, with the best professionals handling it, it would still be impossible to achieve such a high survival rate. Did you hear that? This is what the spiritual flower supervisor, the chief specialist of the Spirit Medicine Nursery, personally said. Meng Jueguang said proudly. Chapter 3890. The supervisor of Spirit Flower took a deep look at him and continued, these seedlings seem to have been growing for a while, and their quality is very good. The spiritual herb seeds provided to the newcomers were cultivated in batches to be congenitally deficient. In theory, no matter how good the outside environment is, it's impossible to grow seedlings of such quality. This is also something that no one can do. Well now Lin Yi, what else do you have to say? In Meng Jueguang's view, the 2 points mentioned by the supervisor of Spirit Flower had completely confirmed the fact that Lin Yi had cheated. Cheating in the crucial newcomer assessment didn't sound as serious as rebellion, but it was also a serious crime. In this way, Lin Yi's name would at least be blacklisted by the 3 pavilions, and he would never be able to make a name for himself in the North Island in this life. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi frowned and looked at Meng Jueguang saying, Senior brother Meng, the supervisor of Spirit Flower is a guest from afar. and his status and power are no less than yours. Don't you think it's rude of you to interrupt him like this? What the hell? Meng Jueguang almost spat out blood. In front of everyone he was called rude by Lin Yi, a newcomer in the secular world. It was so intolerable. Lin Yi, don't try to change the subject. According to what the supervisor of Spirit Flower just said, you've already been convicted of cheating. Let's see how you can defend yourself now. Meng Jueguang couldn't help but swear. I've been convicted of cheating? Lin Yi was instantly amused. Senior brother Meng, you just said that the supervisor of Spirit Flower has the most right to speak here. Why can't you wait to jump out and pronounce the sentence before the supervisor of Spirit Flower says anything? Slap yourself in the face. Isn't this our senior brother Meng's specialty? Qiao Hongkai, who was standing beside him, said with a smile. Meng Jueguang's face darkened again. Seeing that everyone was looking at him, he could only suppress his anger and maintain his composure. All right, then I'll have to trouble Supervisor Ling Hua to pronounce the sentence. Today I'll let you die knowing. Everyone's eyes focused back on the Spirit Flower steward. He took a deep breath and said slowly, fine. Then let me tell you the result. This junior brother Lin Yi, he did not cheat. What? You didn't cheat? Meng Jueguang and the crowd were dumbfounded. He pointed at Lin Yi and stammered, How? How is this possible? Manager Ling Hua, you couldn't have made a mistake, right? The Spiritual Flower manager shook her head and said in a similarly incredulous tone, To be honest, I also find it hard to believe. However, these 39 seedlings were indeed grown from that batch of seeds. This cannot be faked. Why? Meng Jueguang quickly asked. Because these seeds were all marked with the vital energy unique to the spirit medicine nursery. No one can imitate it. Therefore we can confirm that junior brother Lin Yi did not cheat, the Spiritual Flower steward said with certainty. Did you hear that? Senior brother Meng, what else do you have to say? Lin Yi immediately sneered. He had already noticed the vital energy mark on the seeds when he was channeling vital energy into them. That was why he dared to do that today. Even if the Spiritual Flower steward and Meng Jueguang were in cahoots, he was not afraid. However, from what the Spiritual Flower steward had said, he and Meng Jueguang were not the same kind of people. This saved him a lot of trouble. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, Meng Jueguang was in a difficult position this time. Not only did he frame his new subordinate, he even attacked him recklessly. If this accusation was pursued, it would be a serious one. Everyone can testify for me. I was wholeheartedly working for the public. Even if there was a mistake along the way, it's understandable. The higher-ups will definitely look into every detail. Lin Yi, don't think of framing a good person. Meng Jueguang was at a loss for words. However, he still stubbornly said, Framing a good person? From what you said, you're framing my boss Lin Yi. What do you mean by that? Qiao Hongkai was instantly angered. This Meng Jueguang was too shameless. Spiritual Flower steward, you were a witness from the beginning to the end. What do you say? Lin Yi ignored Meng Jueguang and turned to look at the Spiritual Flower steward. Regarding today's matter, Steward Meng was indeed a little rash. He was at fault first. The Spiritual Flower steward immediately made his stand clear. Today he had followed Kong Ming here with the intention of working for the public. He was not in the same boat as Meng Jueguang. Naturally, there was no need for him to take the blame for Meng Jueguang. All right. I will report this matter to the higher-ups. I hope that the Spiritual Flower steward can speak up for justice. Lin Yi cupped his hands and said. The Spiritual Flower steward glanced at Meng Jueguang. Normal people would not do something like offending someone for no reason. However, he still nodded and said, All right. However, Junior Lin Yi, can you tell me how you cultivated these seedlings? It's hard to imagine the survival rate of such good quality. I'm very curious. As the head steward of the Spirit Herb Nursery, the only thought on his mind right now was to figure out the secrets on Lin Yi's body. Out of the 40 seeds that were congenitally deficient, he had managed to grow 39 seedlings of good quality. It was an exaggeration to say that the survival rate was close to 100%. If he wasn't moved by this, then he wouldn't have earned his position today. If he could get his hands on this secret, it would be equivalent to getting a huge treasure for the Spirit Medicine Nursery. Not to mention offending a mere Meng Jueguang, even offending the head of the Welcome Pavilion, Hu Yunfeng, wouldn't be a problem. Spirit Flower Steward, you should know that this is a hidden trump card. Even the spiritual herb planters in the Spirit Medicine Nursery wouldn't share it easily, would they? Lin Yi rejected without hesitation. That's true. I was being rude. The Spiritual Flower Steward couldn't hide the disappointment in his eyes. but he didn't give up. Then if there's a chance, Junior Lin Yi, would you like to work in the spirit medicine nursery? Of course you can also work in the elixir hall. Don't worry about the salary. Everything is negotiable. Well, we'll see how it goes, Lin Yi said non-committally. Right now he was just a newbie in the welcome pavilion. As for his future development, he could only take it one step at a time. His main goal was to go to the middle island and find Zhang Liju. If it could be of some help, then he wouldn't mind working anywhere. But if it was of no benefit, then he could only politely decline. Seeing that Lin Yi didn't seem to be particularly tempted, the spiritual flower steward couldn't help but look at him in a higher light. Neither arrogant nor rash. This Lin Yi was quite interesting. Chapter 3891. My pleasure, Kang Mingming said eagerly. Although he had Su Lingchong behind him, he still wanted to enter the Hall of Pills in the future, and this spirit flower manager was considered a mid-level member of the Hall of Pills, and it was said that he had a powerful background. If he could form a good relationship with him, it would be a good thing. He specially invited this person over today, other than to discuss how to deal with Lin Yi with Meng Jueguang. The other reason was to curry favor. Now that his first goal had failed, he had to grasp the remaining one in case he got nothing. Unexpectedly, just as Kang Mingming was about to flatter him, the spirit flower manager already pointed at the 4 cultivation tanks Lin Yi took out. Then I'll have to trouble Brother Kang to help me move them back to the spirit medicine nursery. Remember to come alone, I have something urgent to do, so I'll be leaving first. With that, the spirit flower manager swaggered away, leaving Kang Mingming staring at the 4 huge cultivation tanks alone. When he came back to his senses, he wanted to cry, but no tears came out. He could only look to Zhong Pingliang for help. The spirit flower manager said that only you can go. I can't help even if I want to. Zhong Pingliang shrugged, secretly gloating. Lin Yi and the others laughed. Although this spirit flower manager was a sissy, he was a clever person. In order to show his innocence, he cut ties with Kang Mingming and used this kind of thing to disgust Kang Mingming. Only he could think of something like this. The culture tank wasn't heavy, but it was big. Plus, the seedlings inside couldn't be bumped or damaged. If someone really took 4 of them all the way to the spirit medicine nursery 20 miles away, even someone like Kang Xiaoming, who was at the early stage of foundation establishment, would be in a difficult position. Serves him right. This kind of bastard deserved to be dealt with like this. The spirit flower manager left, and Kang Mingming stumbled away with the 4 cultivation tanks. As for the main character, Meng Jueguang, he was given the cold shoulder, and even had to wait anxiously for someone to settle the score. It was a good show. Just like that, Lin Yi had dealt with it so easily. It really made the crowd who were watching the show deeply understand what it meant to be the #1 rookie. This was not the end of the matter. With the help of his bitter senior brother, Lin Yi divided the complaint into 3 parts and simultaneously sent them to the higher-ups of 3 places: the Welcoming Pavilion, the Law Enforcement Hall, and the Blue Cloud Pavilion. This time, it was finally Meng Jueguang's turn to be restless. Framing a newcomer and rashly making a move, this crime was no joke. If this complaint was only sent to Hu Yunfeng's hands, it wouldn't be a big deal. After all, Hu Yunfeng was one of his own people and he would definitely protect him. But if it was someone from the Enforcement Hall and Clear Cloud Pavilion's upper echelons, he, Meng Jueguang, wouldn't be able to hook up with them. In addition, the spiritual flower caretaker had also stepped forward to testify for Lin Yi. If they were to go by the book, Meng Jueguang would be the one to do it this time. Even if he didn't die, a layer of his skin would be peeled off. 3 days later, all the rookies in the Welcoming Pavilion gathered at the back mountain hall. The 5th round of the rookie assessment was about to begin. Before the pavilion master, Hu Yunfeng, officially announced the start. The rookies gathered in groups of 2s and 3s and chatted. Junior brother Lin, I asked senior brother Lu to find someone to help me inquire about this matter regarding the lawsuit against Meng Jueguang. I'm afraid it's going to fall through, Sai. Senior brother Bitter said to Lin Yi with a frown. Although he was an honest person, he had been oppressed by Meng Jueguang for too long. In terms of resentment towards Meng Jueguang, he was definitely the one with the deepest resentment. This time he finally managed to get hold of the other party's weakness. Senior brother Bitter really hoped to make Meng Jueguang suffer, or even directly step on him. However, the news that came from above these 2 days made his heart sink. Hu Yunfeng did not have much hope for the 3 papers of complaint. It was just a formality. However, the Law Enforcement Hall and the Blue Cloud Pavilion also put on a stance of holding back, which made people's jaws drop. Actually, there's nothing to be disappointed about. This was already expected. Lin Yi shook his head indifferently. Unlike senior brother Bitter, He did not expect Meng Jueguang to really be severely punished by the higher-ups. After all, he had Su Lingqiong backing him up. For the sake of Su Yuanjing, the third elder of the Soaring Sky Pavilion, as long as it was not a big matter, they would more or less give him some face. It couldn't be helped. Where there were people, there would be underworld. This was the underworld of Heaven Stage Island. Therefore this time, when Senior Brother Bitter sent out the 3 complaints, Lin Yi's real purpose was just to make a warning to Meng Jueguang and his subordinates, so that they would not dare to be so unscrupulous again. After all, there would always be a time when favors were useless. Su Lingqiong could protect him this time. Would he protect him a second time or a third time? Not to mention whether Meng Jueguang would give him face. If Meng Jueguang was really stupid to this point, this young Master Su would probably have kicked him away long ago. There was no need to save him. Boss, look, Meng Jueguang's eyes are already green when he looks at you. It's like he wants to skin you alive. Qiao Hongkai chuckled. Lin Yi laughed. Let him be, but this guy isn't an idiot. He'll learn from his mistakes, and I don't think he'll dare come looking for trouble in the open after what I did to him. At most, he'll use underhanded methods like before. Underhanded means? Meng Jueguang is a living tragedy in front of our boss. When did he take advantage? If his hand comes, his hand will be broken. If his leg comes, his leg will be broken. If his skull comes, he will be smashed into pieces. Qiao Hongkai curled her lips and sneered. The bitter senior brother and Xiao Ran couldn't help but laugh when they heard this. Qiao Hongsai's words were crude, but the logic was not crude. Qiao Hongsai's witty words were really the same when used on Meng Jueguang. It was a tragedy. However, the next assessment is in the outer area of the back mountain. Just like the previous newcomer trial, the 3 of you still have to be careful. Otherwise it will be easy for others to take advantage of you. The bitter senior couldn't help but remind them. It's better if he comes looking for trouble. I haven't taken revenge for the last time. This time I must get back at him. Qiao Hongkai clenched his fist and snorted. In the previous newcomer trial, he was the most miserable one among them. If it was not for Lin Yi's timely appearance at the last moment, he and Xiao Ran might not have survived. Xiao Ran at least had the shadow step to struggle for his life, but he, Qiao Hongkai, would definitely die. Now the newcomer trial was changed to the newcomer assessment. The location was also in the outer area of the back mountain, but the strength of the enemy was completely reversed. Chapter 3892. While everyone was talking, everyone was already in place. Hu Yunfeng immediately announced, the 5th round of the newcomer assessment, the spiritual beast trial. I believe that all the newcomers are familiar with this mission. It is to capture a spiritual beast as your pet. In the cultivation world of Heaven Stage Island, spiritual beasts as pets were extremely common. Any expert with a bit of strength would definitely have a spiritual beast with them. Let's not talk about the distant ones. Miss Shangguan's little curly bear was a living example. Regarding this, the newcomers present were already envious. However, firstly, their strength was low, and secondly, they did not have the extra spiritual jades to raise a spiritual beast. They could not even satisfy the most basic requirement of taming a spiritual beast, a spiritual pet talisman. Therefore, they could only think about it for the time being. Spiritual pet talisman was the most common and reliable way to tame a spiritual beast on Heaven Stage Island. However, the price was not low. Even the lowest level spiritual pet talisman would cost at least 100 spiritual jades in the market. Other than the 2nd generation cultivators and Soaring Sky Pavilion, the other newcomers could not afford it. After a pause, Hu Yunfeng continued, this time spiritual beast assessment will last for a month. The location will still be the periphery of the back mountain. Before you set off, each of you will be given a low-level spiritual pet talisman. After a month, the points will be evaluated. As for the specific evaluation method and some things to take note of, Manager Meng Jueguang will introduce it to everyone. Seeing Meng Jueguang walk up the stage in high spirits to Hu Yunfeng's side, the newcomers were all confused. This guy was just a newcomer manager of Blue Cloud Pavilion, but there were all the newcomers from the 3 pavilions present. What was the situation with him going up to introduce them? For this kind of thing, even if Pavilion Master Hu Yunfeng did not personally introduce them, there was still 2nd Pavilion Master Feng Song. At the very least, Kang Ming, the newcomer manager, would be more reasonable than Meng Jueguang, right? However, Lin Yi and the others were well aware of this. Meng Jueguang was about to be promoted to the position of the 3rd Pavilion Master of the Welcoming Pavilion. Now that it was already a foregone conclusion, Hu Yunfeng was clearly doing Meng Jueguang a favor by doing this, so that Meng Jueguang could show his face and establish his prestige in the future. I was wondering why this guy was dressed so pretentiously today, like a duck that was going to be sold. Looks like he's planning this. Qiao Hongkai said with a strange expression on his face as he curled his lips at Lin Yi's group. Lin Yi nodded and said, "It's probably because they saw that Meng Jueguang has been forced into such a sorry state by us for the past 2 days, so they took this opportunity to save some face for him. Otherwise, even if he takes the position of third pavilion master, he will still be disgraced. Alas, when I think about how senior brother Lu was pushed away by him, I can't help but sigh. I feel uncomfortable in my heart. If he really stabilizes the position of third pavilion master, I'm afraid he'll be even more overbearing in the future." Senior brother Ku Bai sighed when he heard this. However, Lin Yi patted his shoulder and comforted him with a smile. "Senior brother Ku Bai, you don't have to be too pessimistic. Every dog has its day. When the time comes, who knows who will be lucky and who will be unlucky. Just wait and see." Clearing his throat on the stage, Meng Jueguang then said with a solemn face, "The evaluation of the points in this round of the Spirit Beast assessment is divided into 2 aspects. The first is the points of the Spirit Beast level, and the second is the points of the Spirit Beast strength. The 2 points add up to the final points of this round." Looking at Meng Jueguang's pretentious behavior, the audience couldn't help but feel sick. However, due to their own interests, they could only endure the disgust and continue listening. The so-called points of the Spirit Beast level were based on the level of the Spirit Beast captured by each newcomer. Each level corresponded to different points. Unranked 5 points, Yellow 10 points, Profound 15 points. Earth ranked 20 points, Heaven 25 points. As for those above the Heaven stage, it was impossible because the low-level Spirit Pet Talisman that the Welcome Pavilion issued to the newcomers could at most subdue Heaven stage perfect Spirit Beasts. For those at the Foundation Establishment stage, a mid-level Spirit Pet Talisman was needed. The low-level Spirit Pet Talisman could not guarantee the effect at all. The so-called points of the Spirit Beast strength were to let the Spirit Beasts that the newcomers subdued fight with each other. The rules were completely different from the newcomer challenge. It was a simpler and clearer single-round elimination system. The newcomers of the 3 pavilions would draw lots to determine their opponents. Every time they won a round, they would get 10 points of the Spirit Beast strength. The loser would be eliminated. The highest points of the Spirit Beast level were 25 points, and the highest points of the Spirit Beast strength were 40 points. Added together, it was the theoretical highest points of the Spirit Beast assessment round, 65 points. Compared to the previous 4 rounds, the theoretical points were not high, but for the newcomers, this round was undoubtedly the most practical and exciting round. Even if they did not mention the points, they could at least earn a Spirit Pet for free, so why not? After explaining the rules of the points, Meng Jueguang reminded them one last time, "Newcomers, because this assessment round is at the periphery of the back mountain, everything must be done according to the rules of the back mountain hall. Do not do anything stupid like touching the prohibition. Also, the back mountain is strictly prohibited for anyone to casually enter or leave, and you are no exception. So although the Spirit Beast assessment has a month, if you leave midway, it means that you have given up the remaining opportunities and will not be able to enter the back mountain again." After hearing this, the newcomers immediately began to discuss. Even Lin Yi could not help but squint his eyes. They gave enough time for a month, but they did not allow anyone to casually enter or leave. This arrangement was a bit interesting. For an entire month, there was only one low-grade Spirit Pet charm. One chance would be gone once it was used up, so the rookies naturally chose to wait and see. After all, good steel should be used on the blade's edge. If they were to waste it on inferior Spirit Beasts, wouldn't it be a waste? However, after hearing Meng Jueguang's words, the newcomers had no choice but to readjust their strategy. The back mountain was filled with ferocious beasts. Even if it was just the periphery, it was still a dangerous place. This was something that the newcomers had experienced during the previous rookie trial. In such a place, almost no one could rest well. If they stayed for too long, they would tire themselves out. When the time came, not to mention capturing a Spirit Pet, they might even lose their lives. As such, between the risks and benefits, the newcomers had to weigh the pros and cons in their hearts. In the end, to capture a Spirit Pet and leave quickly, or to risk their lives to wander around a few rounds, this was a dilemma that every newcomer had to face. If they were lucky, they might receive a gift from the heavens, but if they were unlucky, their lives would be in danger. Alright, the rules and precautions have been explained clearly. Newcomers, if there are no other questions, come over to collect the Spirit Pet charm and prepare to set off. Wu Yunfeng said. Chapter 3893. However, although the distance between them was very far, and the possibility of them meeting each other was very small, there was still an entire month's time. If someone really wanted to cross over, there was still a chance of them meeting each other. Boss, how are we going to move this time? Separate or together? Xiao Hongkai asked softly. Due to the long duration of the assessment, it was unrealistic for rookies from the same pavilion to be separated. Therefore, the rookie placement was not as strict as the previous rookie trial. If rookies wished to form a team, they could request to be placed together. Lin Yi thought about it, then said to Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, for the sake of caution, let's go together first. The previous experience was still fresh in Lin Yi's mind. As soon as he went down, he encountered two extremely powerful Foundation Establishment stage spirit beasts. If it was any other newcomer, they would probably wet their pants on the spot. It was almost certain that they would lose their lives. There was obviously something fishy about this arrangement. Lin Yi was afraid that the other party would use the same trick again. Although he was fine, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai might not be able to handle it. Moreover, Meng Jueguang now had Murong Zhen, an expert at the peak of the early Foundation Establishment stage. If she joined forces with Meng Tong and the others to attack together, they would be a very big threat. They had to be careful about this. After the three of them finished discussing, they were released by the staff of the back mountain hall. As expected, as soon as the three of them landed on the top of the tree, they realized that something was wrong. The place where the three of them had landed looked like a huge tree nest, and a spirit beast was crouching in the tree nest. It looked like some kind of eagle spirit beast. Oh, it feels like it's in the early heaven stage. Boss, our luck is not bad. Xiao Hongsai's eyes lit up. Just as he said, this eagle did not look very strong at first glance. It was in the early heaven stage. For this spiritual beast assessment, it was simply a tailor-made spiritual pet delivered to their doorstep. To be able to meet such a suitable choice as soon as he landed, his luck was really not just for show. However, when Xiao Ran saw this scene, he said with some hesitation, "This doesn't feel right. Something is indeed wrong. This guy is just a cub." Lin Yi said with a wry smile. The eagle in front of him was too familiar. It looked exactly the same as the ghost-eyed golden eagle he saw last time. Early heaven rank and it's still a cub? How ferocious would an adult be? Xiao Hongkai was shocked. Even though he had always been courageous, when he saw the chirping little condor in front of him, his eyes flinched a little. If I'm not mistaken, this thing is called a ghost-eyed golden eagle. An adult's strength is at least in the middle stage of the Foundation Establishment stage. It might even be stronger than this, Lin Yi said with some fear in his tone. The ghost-eyed golden eagle he encountered last time was in the middle stage of Foundation Establishment, but it did not mean that it was the limit of their clan's strength. It was entirely possible that they were stronger than this. Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai both sucked in a breath of cold air at the same time. Above the middle stage of Foundation Establishment, what the fuck, how could they deal with it? One had to know. Even at the same level, the actual combat power of many spirit beasts was far above that of human cultivators. Especially the ghost-eyed golden eagle, which was an overlord-level bird of prey in the sky, it was simply a natural fighting race. It was almost invincible in the same level. If there was really a ghost-eyed golden eagle in the middle stage of Foundation Establishment, the three of them did not have the confidence to fight it at all. Lin Yi might have a chance to save his life, but Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, then they were really not far from death. Originally, the space in the jade pendant was guarded by the ghost thing. Even if they really provoked an existence like the ghost-eyed golden eagle, Lin Yi was not worried, but what made him helpless was that after the ghost thing heard about the contents of the spirit beast trial, it had already made it clear that it would not intervene, unless Lin Yi himself was in a fatal threat. This matter was not difficult to understand. Although the ghost thing was now only a spirit, it was, after all, an elder of the spirit beast clan. Usually, it helped Lin Yi to intimidate other spirit beasts, but if it said that it helped human cultivators like Lin Yi to subdue spirit pets, it was a bit unreasonable. If these spirit beasts were willing to follow humans, then he had nothing to say, but the problem was that they were going to use the spirit pet talisman to subdue the spirit beasts, which was completely against the will of the spirit beasts. The ghost thing could already be considered open-minded if it did not jump out and kill them. If they wanted him to help them, then it was simply a fool's dream. It's not good to stay here for a long time, let's retreat first, Lin Yi suggested. Xiao Ran immediately nodded in agreement. The young ghost-eyed golden eagle in the early stage of heaven stage in front of him was not scary, but if they continued to stay here, there was no telling when the adult ghost-eyed golden eagle would come, and then it would be big trouble. However, Xiao Hongsai's footsteps were a little hesitant, looking quite reluctant to leave. You don't want to subdue it, do you? Lin Yi asked with a twitch of his eyelids. Xiao Hongkai was silent for a moment, took a deep breath and said, "Boss, you two go first, I want to stay and try." What? Honkai, are you kidding? Xiao Ran was taken aback. At this time, even if he hurriedly ran, he might not be able to guarantee that he would be able to escape unscathed. This guy actually wanted to subdue the young in front of him. It was like pulling a tooth out of a tiger's mouth. He must be crazy. Lin Yi also frowned. This is not a small matter, Honkai. You have to think clearly. If we run now, the ghost-eyed golden eagle may not chase after us, but if you subdue its young, then it will definitely not rest until you die. At that time, the consequences will be 9 out of 10. In human society, subduing a young was no different from abducting a child. Once the parents found out, they would definitely retaliate crazily, and it was the same for the ghost-eyed golden eagle. With the ghost-eyed golden eagle's strength and mobility, if Qiao Honkai was really targeted by it in the periphery of the back mountain, it would already be very optimistic to say that 9 out of 10 would be a dead end, and 10 out of 10 would be a bloody reality. Boss, I know, but the stronger the adult, the more precious this young, isn't it? I really don't want to let go of such a good opportunity, even if I have to risk my life for it. Qiao Honkai said with a resolute expression. At first sight of this little eagle, Qiao Honkai had the impulse to subdue it, and after knowing that this was a ghost-eyed golden eagle, and that the adult strength was at least above the middle stage of the foundation establishment stage, this impulse became even stronger. One must know that he was a grassroots loose cultivator with no background, and if he had not met Lin Yi, perhaps he would be in the same situation as Cha Wu, who was at the bottom of the ladder, and it would be difficult for him to have a chance to turn things around. As for high-grade spiritual pets, that was even more wishful thinking. Chapter 3894. Looking at Xiao Hongsai's impulsive expression, although Lin Yi felt that this was a bit risky, he still nodded in the end. All right then, there's not much time, hurry up and do it, I'll keep a lookout for you, but there's no need for Xiao Ran to take the risk, he can leave first. Boss, don't look down on me, if you're here I'm here. Xiao Ran immediately said. Qiao Honkai was startled when he heard this, his face couldn't help but be moved, he quickly waved his hand. Boss, Xiao Ran, this time it's my own matter, I deserve to throw caution to the wind, but it's not right for the two of you to get involved. If something were to happen, I won't be able to live in peace for the rest of my life. You guys should hurry up and leave. Lin Yi patted his back and laughed. Just relying on yourself, what do you think your chances of survival are? Come on, don't waste any more time talking nonsense, hurry up. Qiao Honkai looked deeply at the two of them, and no longer dilly-dallying, he immediately turned his head and pounced towards the young bird. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle might return at any time, and if he could not successfully subdue it before then everything would be in vain. In order to tame a spiritual beast, there were 2 basic requirements. One was to have a spiritual pet talisman of the corresponding grade. The other was that the captor had to personally injure and subdue the spiritual beast and obtain its blood. This young ghost-eyed golden eagle's strength was probably at the early stage of heaven stage, but if they were to really fight, it was estimated that even a mid-stage heaven stage expert might not be able to defeat it, and it was a ferocious bird, with a natural advantage in the air. After all, Qiao Honkai was an early-stage foundation establishment expert. With his strength, it was naturally more than enough to deal with this young eagle, but the premise was that the other party didn't escape, otherwise if it really flew into the air, he and Lin Yi wouldn't be able to do anything about it. Fortunately, although this young eagle had been chirping wildly since the beginning, it didn't have any intention of taking off to escape, but had been squatting in its nest, staring at Lin Yi and the others. Even when Qiao Honkai pounced at it, it didn't fly away immediately. Instead, it fiercely used its undeveloped sharp claws to scratch back. Even Qiao Honkai, a foundation-building early-stage expert, was left with several bone-deep claw marks. From this, it could be seen how ferocious its battle strength was. Boss, could it be that this cub still can't fly? Otherwise, why isn't it running away? Xiao Ran, who was watching from the side, couldn't help but wonder. The more powerful the spirit beast, the longer its growth period. For example, the ghost-eyed golden eagle was not small. It was already at the early stages of the heaven rank, but there was still a long way to go before it reached adulthood. It was normal for it to not be able to fly. Lin Yi said thoughtfully, maybe. But ghost-eyed golden condor, this kind of vicious bird, is not only powerful, it's also extremely sinister and cunning. I keep having the feeling that this cub doesn't have any good intentions. It can't be. You mean this little guy didn't escape in a hurry because he wanted to bait us and wait for the adult ghost-eyed golden eagle to come back? Xiao Ran looked like he had seen a ghost when he heard that. Nothing is impossible. Spirit beasts at this level of strength are already very intelligent. They are not inferior to humans when it comes to scheming. Don't underestimate them. Lin Yi sighed. Last time during the newcomer's trial, Whether it was the ghost-eyed golden eagle that almost killed him or the nine-tailed cloud leopard that he killed, the scheming they displayed was chilling. It was not unreasonable for Lin Yi to speculate about the cub in front of him. Let's not talk about anything else. Just now this cub kept calling out. Maybe there was some kind of telepathic connection between it and its parents. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle might already be on its way back. While the two were talking, Xiao Hongkai had already successfully subdued the cub. For this, she did not hesitate to pay the price of dozens of terrible claw marks all over her body. After all, time was limited. Every second she stayed here was one more second of danger. In comparison, paying the price of this injury was already a profit. She mixed the cub with her own blood, smeared it on the spirit pet talisman, and then stuck it on the cub's forehead. The success or failure of this adventure depended on this move. Although in theory the low-level spirit pet talisman could at most subdue spirit beasts at the peak of heaven stage, this was only in theory. The higher the level of the spirit beast, the more difficult it was to subdue it, and the lower the success rate. This was an eternal truth. The low-level spirit pet talisman could be used to subdue spirit beasts with no rank or yellow rank. However, when it reached the level of heaven stage, the success rate had fallen to less than 40%. Even if the preparation was good in advance, whether it could succeed or not still depended on luck. The reason why the spirit pet talisman could be used to subdue spirit beasts was basically equivalent to a strong brainwashing. Once the master was recognized, a spiritual connection would be established between the spirit pet and its master, making it obedient. Other people, including high-level spirit beasts, could kill it, but they couldn't make it yield. Even the pressure between spirit beasts would lose its effect. This was the advantage of the spirit pet talisman, but the disadvantage was that it would bring a lot of mental burden to the master. After all, when brainwashing the spirit pet, the master would also suffer side effects. Moreover, this spiritual connection existed for a long time. If there were two more spirit pets, the master was likely to have a mental breakdown. In addition, the spirit pet that was subdued by the spirit pet talisman would have its spirituality erased to a certain extent, so its real strength was slightly inferior to that of wild spirit pets. Lin Yi and Xiao Ran waited anxiously for half an hour before they saw Xiao Hongkai let out a long sigh of relief and said, "It's done." At this time the cub had completely fainted, but Lin Yi and Xiao Ran could clearly feel that the original unruly and fierce temperament on its body had disappeared, and it was replaced by a little more docility unique to spirit pets. Although it was a little pity, it was inevitable. There were gains and losses. It's coming? Just as the three of them were preparing to retreat, Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched, and then he felt that the sky had darkened, and the top of his head had already been covered by a huge black shadow. In the end he still couldn't escape this disaster. The adult ghost-eyed golden eagle had returned. Feeling the powerful pressure of this overlord in the sky, Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai couldn't help but be stunned. A casual flap of its wings could break countless giant trees in the sky. What a terrifying power. You two leave quickly, I'll take the cub. Split up and act quickly. Lin Yi hurriedly ordered in a hurry. With the cub by his side, it could attract the ghost-eyed golden eagle's attention, and Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai wouldn't be in too much danger. As for himself, with the ghost thing's protection, his safety was naturally not a problem. Xiao Ran said and directly leaped up a giant tree not far away. It was simply unrealistic to search for Lin Yi in this vast forest. The only way now was to use the ghost-eyed golden eagle to determine Lin Yi's position. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle's body was huge, it could not move at all. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle's body was huge, it was very difficult to see it from below. They could only go up to the top of the tree. Xiao Hongkai also wanted to follow up, but he was not an agile expert. He did not know how long it would take to wait for him to climb up the tree. What's more, he was still injured and could only wait for Xiao Ran's news below. After waiting anxiously for a moment, seeing Xiao Ran fly down from the top, Xiao Hongkai hurriedly went forward and asked, "How is it? How is boss?" Xiao Ran had a strange expression on his face. He scratched his head and said, I don't know what to say." "What do you mean? Boss is in danger? Tell me quickly." Xiao Hongkai suddenly became even more anxious. No, the ghost-eyed golden eagle's current position is about 10 miles north. However, when I saw it just now, it has been circling around that position as if it has been searching, but it has not landed. Xiao Ran's tone carried a bit of disbelief. "What do you mean?" Xiao Hongkai still did not understand. Xiao Ran pinched his chin and speculated, "It gives me the feeling that this ghost-eyed golden eagle seems to have lost boss's whereabouts. which is why it is wandering around like this. How is this possible? Xiao Hongkai could not help but be stunned. As a powerful spirit beast above the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage, and it was also an overlord-level bird of prey in the sky, there was no doubt that its perception was powerful. Once locked on by it, even an expert whose strength was above it might not be able to get rid of it, let alone Lin Yi. I also don't know how Boss did it, but from the looks of it, it seems to be the case. Although Xiao Ran also had a face of disbelief, seeing is believing, he could not help but believe it. Then what do we do now? Xiao Hongkai scratched his head. If Lin Yi was in danger, according to his character, he would definitely rush over without saying a word, but the current situation was somewhat confusing. Xiao Ran thought for a moment. In my opinion, we can't go to Boss's side, otherwise not only will we not be able to help, but it is very likely that it will ruin things. However, we can't stay here for long. If that ghost-eyed golden eagle can't find Boss, it is very likely that it will turn back. Let's leave first and then think of a way to meet up with Boss. All right. Xiao Hongkai was still a little worried about Lin Yi's situation, but in the current situation rashly following over was indeed the most foolish choice, so she could only do as Xiao Ran said. At this moment, on Lin Yi's side, just as Xiao Ran had speculated, Lin Yi had indeed successfully gotten rid of the ghost-eyed golden eagle's pursuit. The ghost-eyed golden eagle above was similar in strength to the one he encountered during the newcomer trial. It was also in the middle stage of the Foundation establishment stage. Originally, with Lin Yi's current strength after being locked on by it, it would be a very difficult thing to get rid of it, and from the beginning to the end that ghost thing did not help. This time the reason why it was so smooth was because of the cub that Xiao Hongkai had just subdued. Indeed, in the eyes of the ghost-eyed golden eagle above, this cub was an out-and-out signal device. Carrying such a cub, Lin Yi was like carrying a big light bulb of a few hundred watts. No matter how fast his movements were, he could not escape its perception. However, there was an old saying that it was dark under the light. The ghost-eyed golden eagle could have directly locked onto Lin Yi, but since there was a natural big light bulb like the cub, the ghost-eyed golden eagle naturally locked onto the cub. It did not know that Lin Yi had a golden finger called the Jade Pendant Space. When the ghost-eyed golden eagle was lured away from Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai, Lin Yi turned around and stuffed the cub into the Jade Pendant Space. Thus, without any suspense, the ghost-eyed golden eagle completely lost track of Lin Yi in an instant, as if its eyes had suddenly gone blind. This was the scene that Xiao Ran saw. The ghost-eyed golden eagle had been circling above, but it could not find Lin Yi's figure. Chapter 3896. However, the ghost-eyed golden eagle was not an ordinary spirit beast after all. Even if Lin Yi successfully got rid of its lock with the help of the space in the Jade Pendant, he had to be extremely careful in his next move. Otherwise, if he was even slightly careless, the ghost-eyed golden eagle would immediately come back. Although the ghost-eyed golden eagle had temporarily lost track of his whereabouts, it would still search for him in the following period of time. Therefore Lin Yi did not intend to meet up with Xiao Ran and Xiao Hongkai. Moving alone was safer for both of them. For the other newcomers in this spirit beast assessment, being able to get a spirit pet for free was something that they could not wish for. Like Xiao Hongkai, who was directly hot-blooded when she saw a ghost-eyed golden eagle cub, Lin Yi did not think too much of it. After all, there was a ghostly thing in the space in the Jade Pendant. If Lin Yi used such an inhumane thing like the spiritual pet talisman to collect a spirit pet under his nose, it would be a little unreasonable. Moreover, this kind of low-level spiritual pet talisman could only subdue spirit beasts below the heaven stage. It was difficult for this level of spirit beasts to enter Lin Yi's eyes. Even when he saw the ghost-eyed golden eagle cub just now, he did not have any interest in it. Of course, if it was a heaven-defying spirit beast cub with the bloodline of a king, then it was a different matter. At that time, maybe Lin Yi did not need to do it himself. The ghostly thing would be happy to see it and take the initiative to help him rope it in. However, this was only the periphery of the back mountain. The probability of a heaven-defying spirit beast appearing was negligible, close to zero. From Lin Yi's point of view, the biggest benefit of the spirit beast test this time round wasn't the spirit pet, but the ability to stay in the outer area of the back mountain for a whole month. To him this was the best benefit. The three pavilions were very strict with the control of the back mountain. For newcomers like Lin Yi, other than the opportunity of the newcomer assessment, they could not go in and out at ordinary times. And this back mountain was the only place that he knew of where he could find the heart-devouring exquisite grass. With the heart-devouring exquisite grass he would be able to refine the foundation-building pill, and with the foundation-building pill he would be able to level up quickly. This was what Lin Yi valued the most at the moment. Although there were 2 heart-devouring exquisite grass in the space of the jade pendant, the more the better. If he could find a few more heart-devouring exquisite grass in the periphery of the back mountain, it would be a worthwhile trip. In addition, the back mountain was rich in resources. For any cultivator, it was a natural treasure trove. Even if it was just the periphery, as long as one was willing, one could find many priceless treasures of heaven and earth. Not only were there all kinds of spirit medicines and spirit beasts, but there were also many rare and precious treasures in the outside world. Last time the newcomer trial only lasted for 3 days. Although Lin Yi had successfully obtained a heart-devouring exquisite grass, he did not have the time to stroll around. However, this time he had an entire month's time. If he wanted to, he could run around the back mountain's periphery. Such an opportunity. Lin Yi naturally had to make good use of this opportunity. Otherwise, he would be letting down the unique mobile warehouse in his jade pendant space. However, what surprised Lin Yi was that before he could start to sweep, he actually met an old acquaintance in this vast back mountain's periphery. When he discovered that the top of his head was shrouded by a black shadow, Lin Yi thought that he was discovered by the ghost-eyed golden eagle. He did not expect that it was a flying spirit beast from the back mountain hall. A person and a beast descended from the sky. It was actually Shanghai Laner and her little curly-coiled bear. He watched helplessly as Shanghai Laner and the little curly-coiled bear descended from the sky and landed in front of him. Even with Lin Yi's tough nerves, he could not help but be shocked. Why are you here? How rude, why didn't you call me little senior sister when you saw me? Shanghai Laner pointed at Lin Yi's forehead and said angrily. Lin Yi was stunned. At this time she still cared about these details. Seeing Shanghai Laner's angry look, he could only satisfy her. Okay, little senior sister. That's good. Shanghai Laner's anger immediately turned into joy. She tiptoed and pretended to be calm as she patted Lin Yi's shoulder. The little curly-coiled bear also followed suit and hung on Lin Yi's neck to do the same action, which made people unable to help but laugh. Lin Yi looked at the master and the pet, not knowing whether to laugh or cry. He shrugged and said, "Now can you tell me why I suddenly appeared here?" Under normal circumstances, without the permission of the back mountain hall, no one could enter and exit the back mountain at will. But with Shanghai Laner's powerful background, although it was possible to make an exception and obtain permission, how could the elders of the back mountain hall let her in alone? It must be known that with little curly-coiled bear's strength, it would be difficult for Shanghai Laner to deal with the perils of the back mountain. The elders of the back mountain hall let her in without permission. If something happened, how would they explain it to Shanghai Tianhua? And what made Lin Yi even more surprised was that it was easier said than done to find a person in the vast back mountain periphery. How did Shanghai Laner know that he was here? Hee, senior sister, of course I have something important to do here. Anyway, little junior brother, you have nothing to do, so accompany me to do a mission in the back mountain. Shanghai Laner said with a smile. Mission? What mission? Lin Yi was even more confused. According to his understanding, a young lady like Shanghai Laner would not care about mission rewards. She could have as many cultivation resources as she wanted, so why would she need to do any mission? What's more, she came alone to do a mission in the dangerous back mountain. With the strength of this young lady who was barely at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment stage, and bringing along a burden like little curly-coiled bear, wasn't it a little risky? Let me tell you, little junior brother, grandfather gave me a mission a few days ago. He asked me to design a weapon and collect materials for forging. I've already thought of the weapon's appearance, but I'm still missing a few materials. One of the most important materials can only be found in the back mountain, so I, your senior sister, came here. Shanghai Laner said in a serious manner. So that's how it is. Lin Yi nodded in understanding. From his point of view, this should be Shanghai Tianhua taking the opportunity to let this young lady gain some experience. Otherwise, if she were to blindly protect the soaring sky pavilion, no matter how diligently she cultivated, it would be difficult for her to truly grow. Moreover, this little senior sister in front of him did not look like someone who would diligently cultivate. Originally, I was a little scared to come here alone, but I didn't want to ask Su Lingchong and those annoying guys for help. It just so happens that little junior brother is doing the newcomer assessment here, so I directly came to find you. What do you think? Senior sister is very smart, right? Shanghai Laner said proudly. Chapter 3897. Shengguan scratched her head and said matter-of-factly, "That's how I found you. I told Grandpa Baldy in the back mountain hall that I would come to find you, and then he sent someone to bring me here." Grandpa Baldy? Lin Yi was stunned for a moment and then reacted. She should be talking about the bald elder sitting in the middle of the back mountain hall. However, this made him even more shocked. Could the elders of the back mountain hall be so powerful that they could so easily lock onto him in the vast back mountain? Even with the assistance of various restrictions in the back mountain, this ability was still shocking. Although there had been such speculations and rumors before, but now that a living example was placed in front of him, Lin Yi couldn't help but shudder. It seemed that he really had to be careful in the back mountain in the future. Otherwise, his secrets might be exposed at any time. Seeing Lin Yi's incredible expression, Shanghai Laner suddenly asked curiously, "Hey? Little junior brother, don't you know? I've heard my grandfather mention that the elders of the back mountain hall can almost cover the entire back mountain with their perception after using the assistance of many restrictions, except for the core area of the back mountain. Although under normal circumstances no one will do this, but if they are asked to find someone or investigate something in the back mountain, it will be very convenient." This was expected. After all, no matter how strong they were, there was a limit to manpower. No one would always pay attention to the entire back mountain. If they really did this, it was not a joke that they would vomit blood from exhaustion. As for Lin Yi, if it wasn't for Shanghai Laner specifically coming to find him, a big figure like the back mountain hall elders would not waste energy on a newcomer, let alone keep their attention on him all the time. So as long as he acted carefully, there should not be a big problem. The core area, shouldn't that be a place of key surveillance? Why can't I sense it? Lin Yi asked curiously. I accidentally spilled the beans. This is a secret I learned from eavesdropping on Grandpa and several other elders. When the higher-ups talked about this matter, they all called it the shame of the three great pavilions. Most people don't know about it. Shanghai Laner stuck out her tongue cutely. The shame of the three great pavilions? Lin Yi's interest was immediately piqued. He had been on Heaven Stage Island for 4 months, and because he had always been in the Welcome Pavilion, he did not know much about the three great pavilions, especially some secrets that were not known to others. The back mountain was clearly the territory of the three great pavilions. Yet, something that the higher-ups called a disgrace to the three great pavilions had actually happened in their territory. Lin Yi's curiosity was immediately aroused. "Forget it, I won't tell anyone else, but it's a different story if it's you, junior brother. I'll tell you in secret." Shanghai Laner pretended to be mysterious as she let Lin Yi move closer to her ear, then said, "In the past, the back mountain hall could monitor the entire back mountain, but something happened later on. When a back mountain hall elder was monitoring the core area, his divine sense was destroyed by the joint efforts of several of the strongest spirit beasts. He has yet to recover from his coma. At that time, the three great pavilions gathered a total of 10 elders to suppress him, but in the end, nothing came of it. After that, this matter was rarely mentioned." After hearing this secret, Lin Yi couldn't help but narrow his eyes. Before, he thought that the back mountain was under the complete control of the three great pavilions, but looking at it now, that didn't seem to be the case. Although the three great pavilions controlled the back mountain in name, there shouldn't be much they could do to the spirit beasts, especially the strongest ones. Otherwise, there wouldn't be such a disgrace to the three great pavilions happening. Lin Yi couldn't help but feel shocked. To be able to fight against 10 elders from the three great pavilions at the same time. Just how strong were the spirit beasts in the core area? No wonder that damn thing said that he would be able to fight them with his current strength during the newbie test. One look from the other party could easily kill him, and that was not a lie. At that moment, Lin Yi suddenly remembered Yu Xiaoka and his unconscious inheritor girlfriends. He asked, "This back mountain hall elder hasn't recovered yet. Didn't he ask Master Zhang Liju for help? Or is it that even he can't do anything?" Shengguan Laner shook her head. "Master Zhang Liju is a big shot who stands at the top of the entire Middle Island, and he's also the master of the Middle Island's Alchemy Hall. Why would he come to the North Island for something like this? Although he came from the North Island and is more or less biased towards the North Island, he's still standing on the Middle Island's side. We can't be too biased and ask for his help for everything, right?" "I see." Lin Yi breathed a sigh of relief. The symptoms of this back mountain hall elder sounded similar to Yu Xiaoka and the others. If Zhang Liju couldn't do anything about it, then he was a little worried. After all, even if Zhao Hongba had said that Zhang Liju had successfully saved Master Bing and Master Shui, it was just a rumor and not an actual case. But I heard from my grandpa that the reason why the Elder Council didn't ask for Master Zhang Liju's help was because they felt that a favor was valuable, and they didn't want to waste it on something so small, Shengguan Laner continued. Lin Yi couldn't help but grin. The life of a back mountain hall elder was a small matter? But thinking about it, compared to Zhang Liju's favor, it did seem like a small matter. From the perspective of the three pavilions, although elder-level masters were hard to come by, they could still be trained and recruited. Zhang Liju's favor, on the other hand, was a precious strategic resource that couldn't be wasted easily. Alright, I've already told you such a big secret. Next, you have to work hard for me. Shangguan Laner tiptoed and patted Lin Yi's shoulder again. Then, alright, Lin Yi thought about it and finally nodded. Although he wanted to use this rare opportunity to walk around the outskirts of the back mountain and search for the heart-eater grass, he could take care of these things when he was with Shanghai Laner. What's more, he was worried about Shangguan Lan or wandering around the back mountain alone with Xiao Quan Quan. Even if the back mountain hall elders were always keeping an eye on her, if something really happened to her, even with the strength of those elders, they would not be able to help. But, do you know where the materials you're looking for are? Lin Yi asked. Chapter 3898. Shangguan Laner giggled and said confidently, Of course I know. Your senior sister has done a lot of homework in advance. The place we're going to next is called Half Moon Lake. We have to walk 200 miles to the north. Half Moon Lake? If that's the case, then let's set off quickly. Lin Yi immediately said. If it was outside, 200 miles was not a long distance for experts at the peak of the early stage of the Foundation establishment stage like them. It wouldn't take them long to finish the journey. But in the outskirts of the back mountain, it was very difficult to say. Hurrying through the dense forest was very troublesome, and the key was that danger lurked everywhere. If they were not careful, they would encounter some ferocious creatures. If something happened along the way, they might not be able to succeed even after a few days and nights. It was not impossible to lose their lives along the way. After a whole day and night, Lin Yi appeared at the shore of Half Moon Lake with Shangguan Laner and Little Circle Bear. The reason why it took so long, besides the fact that Lin Yi had taken the opportunity to collect elixirs along the way, was mainly because of Little Circle Bear. This little guy had cheaply plucked the tail feathers of an oddity sparrow midway. Oddity sparrows were very common creatures in the outskirts of the back mountain. Their individual strength was not too strong, basically between the earth rank and the heaven rank. They had a pair of sturdy, ostrich-like legs, but beautiful feathers that were not inferior to peacocks. The oddity sparrow that Lin Yi and the others encountered on the way was probably because it often saw people. After sensing that Lin Yi and the others were not hostile, it actually swaggered around them in search of food. Thus, Little Circle Bear, under the bursting of curiosity, casually plucked a handful of feathers. Then a tragedy happened. Although the oddity sparrow was a vegetarian bird, it treasured its feathers the most. The consequences of Little Circle Bear's cheaply plucking this time directly caused it to go berserk in an instant. Moreover, the oddity sparrow was a very strong social species. Provoking one of them was equivalent to provoking the whole flock. One odd walker sparrow was not scary, but what if there was a whole group of dozens or even hundreds of them? Even Lin Yi did not dare to say that he could withstand the attack of so many odd walker sparrows. Moreover, in a place like the outskirts of the back mountain, once there was a commotion, the trouble would become more and more serious. Fortunately, although the odd walker sparrow was extremely fast, it had a weakness. It couldn't fly like other birds. Moreover, they couldn't climb up the tree. Lin Yi and the others squatted on the tree for a long time before they finally waited for the odd walker sparrows to gradually disperse. Only then did they manage to escape unscathed. But this action reminded Lin Yi of Yushu, and he couldn't help but sigh. Oh? Is this Half Moon Lake? It looks pretty good. The origin of Half Moon Lake should be because of its half-moon shape, right? Looking at the scene before him, Lin Yi's eyes lit up. Not only that. I heard from Grandpa that there are a lot of fluorescent creatures at the bottom of the lake. At night, it looks like a real half-moon from the sky. I heard that it's very beautiful. Shangguan Laner said with a yearning look. Really? Then it's worth looking forward to. Speaking of which, can you tell us what we are looking for now? Lin Yi asked. From the beginning, Shanghai Laner had been keeping him in suspense, and he still didn't know what Shanghai Laner's goal was. Do you see that super huge cedar tree in the middle of the lake? The thing I want is in the heart of the tree, little brother. Little junior brother. Shangguan Lan smiled. Then let's not delay, let's go there now. Lin Yi's heart moved when he saw it, and he took a deep breath. He changed the topic. The super huge cedar tree that Shanghai Laner pointed out was surrounded by the lake on all sides, but because this was Half Moon Lake, if he set out from the narrowest part, he only needed to skim over the lake surface for a dozen meters. For an expert in the early stage of Foundation establishment stage like him, it was not difficult. However, Shanghai Laner said slowly, Don't worry, little brother, you still don't know, although this Half Moon Lake looks beautiful and quiet, but Grandpa said that the more beautiful things in the world are often more dangerous. If you are a little careless, you will die here. Linny was slightly stunned. He had always been very confident in his own perception. In the periphery of the back mountain, he could also perceive the omnipresent danger in advance. He had avoided a lot of trouble along the way, but on the edge of this half-moon lake, he had never felt any signs of danger. Until now, this half-moon lake gave Linny only one impression, and that was that it was unexpectedly quiet. If it was in the secular world, this tranquility would be a very rare enjoyment, but in this dangerous back mountain, if one carefully experienced it, it would instead make one's heart abnormally uneasy. However, there were no powerful spirit beasts around, nor any other ordinary beasts. Within a few miles of the half-moon lake, it gave people the feeling that it was isolated from the back mountain, a pure land that stood aloof from worldly affairs. The degree of tranquility really made people feel a little strange. However, as Shangguan had said, the more abnormal a place was, the more likely it was to have unexpected dangers. There might be some kind of extremely terrifying spirit beast hidden in the half-moon lake. Otherwise, it would be impossible to explain why there were no spirit beasts around. I have carefully done my homework. This half-moon lake, in the back mountain hall's danger level ranking, is one of the most dangerous places in the periphery of the back mountain. Countless experts have died here. Even gold core stage experts do not dare to take it lightly. In the past, there have been precedents of gold core stage experts dying here. Shanghai Laner said while biting her finger. Gold core stage expert? Lin Yi suddenly jumped in fright. He had a premonition that this place was not ordinary, but he never thought that even gold core stage experts would fall for it. Lin Yi had always been very confident in his own strength, so even when he encountered Nan Tianyong, a peak late-stage Foundation establishment expert, he did not give up on the idea of fighting, and in the end he had the last laugh. However, if the opponent was a gold core stage expert, even Lin Yi would not have any thoughts of contending against him, because the disparity in strength between them was like the difference between heaven and earth. If even gold core stage experts were to fall here, then this half-moon lake was really not something that he, a peak early-stage Foundation establishment expert, could handle. If that's the case, doesn't that mean that our chances of success are next to nothing? Lin Yi asked with a frown. If it was just him, then it would be fine. Even if he knew that there was a slim chance of survival, his unyielding character would still urge him to try. But now he had Shanghai Laner and Xiao Quanxiong with him. Chapter 3899. With such a lineup to deal with the half-moon lake that even a gold core stage expert might not be able to deal with, Lin Yi really did not have the confidence. If he let Shanghai Laner have an accident here, not only would it be difficult to explain to the Soaring Sky Pavilion's pavilion master Shanghai Tianhua, but even Lin Yi himself would not be able to feel at ease. Shanghai Laner nodded. Not only is it negligible if we act during the day, there is no possibility of success at all, but at night, there is a little opportunity. At night? Why do you say that? Lin Yi asked curiously. Wait until night, little junior brother, you will naturally know. Shanghai Laner giggled, keeping him in suspense. It seems that you are indeed well prepared, little senior sister. Lin Yi did not continue to ask and sincerely sighed. Before this, Shanghai Laner in his eyes was purely a young lady, a naive third-generation cultivator, but now he suddenly discovered that if this young lady really wanted to be serious, she was actually quite a reliable person. That is a must, otherwise how can I be your little senior sister? Shanghai Laner had a proud face. The two of them brought Little Circle Bear, and immediately began to recuperate on a tree on the edge of the half-moon lake. Because there were no other spirit beasts around to disturb them, the half-moon lake was a rare secluded place in the periphery of the back mountain. And according to Shanghai Laner, although the half-moon lake was an extremely dangerous place, if one did not touch the lake's surface, it was relatively safe. In other words, the real danger of the half-moon lake was hidden in the lake. As they waited, the sky gradually turned dark, and the half-moon lake that did not seem to have many special features during the day finally revealed its true appearance in front of Lin Yi and Little Circle Bear. Just as Shanghai Laner said, after night, because of the fluorescent creatures, the lake began to shine. Lin Yi could not help but suck in a breath of cold air. After the half-moon lake glowed, the scenery here became magnificent, like a fairyland on earth. However, under its beauty, its ferocious true appearance was unreservedly revealed in front of the two. No wonder you said we have to wait until night to find an opportunity. If we act rashly during the day, nothing will be left. Lin Yi was secretly alarmed. Due to the fluorescent light, the two of them could clearly see the scene under the lake from the treetops. This was a level of perception that could not be penetrated by daylight. And in the depths of the lake, shockingly, there was a huge and malevolent black shadow circling around it. Its appearance was unclear, but judging from the black shadow, not only was it huge but it was also full of killing intent. The feeling it gave Lin Yi was that this fellow's strength was far above that of the ghost-eyed golden condor. It was an out-and-out powerful ferocious beast that would choose a person to devour at any time. If he was ignorant and directly made a move during the day, he would have long since died. But now, because they could clearly see its position, although it was still very dangerous, there was still a chance to take advantage of it. I'm not very good at fighting, so how do we cross the lake to reach the giant fir tree in the middle? It depends on your ability, junior brother. Shanghai Laner shrugged her shoulders at Lin Yi. All right. Lin Yi was already prepared for this. Although with his current strength, it was extremely difficult to bring Shanghai Laner and Little Circle Bear across the lake, but in his opinion, it was a good thing that Shanghai Laner could calmly recognize the reality. Otherwise, if this young lady really wanted to act recklessly, she wouldn't even know how she died. The distance from the giant fir tree in the middle. The narrowest part of the lake was only more than 10 meters, and if the target was directly locked on the horizontal branches, crossing from the canopy of the lake would be closer. Lin Yi carefully observed for a while, and then locked his eyes on a tree not far away. Compared to the surrounding trees that were tens of meters tall, it was not very tall. The top of the tree was only 10 meters from the ground, but this was the one closest to the fir tree in the lake. The distance between the trunk at the edge and the trunk of the fir tree was only 7 or 8 meters. For a master like Lin Yi, who was at the peak of the early stage of foundation establishment stage, this was a simple step. After choosing the position, the next thing to do was to wait patiently for the opportunity. If it was during the day, it was impossible to see the situation at the bottom of the lake, and the danger could not be predicted, so there was no chance to talk about opportunities. But now at night, he could use the fluorescence of the lake to lock the position. At the bottom of the lake was a terrifying existence that could kill a master of the gold core stage. Lin Yi did not have the slightest intention to fight with it, because if they really met face to face, the result was already determined, so he must stay as far away from it as possible. Only when it swam to the farthest end of the half-moon lake would it be the time to act. Then you and Little Circle Bear can stay here. Judging from the situation during the day, this place should be safe as long as you don't do anything unnecessary. Just stay here and wait for me to come back. Remember to hide yourself, there might be some commotion later. Lin Yi said as he stood up. Don't worry, with Little White protecting me, I won't be in danger. Little junior brother, you can rest assured and go on your way. Shanghai Laner smiled and waved her hand. Rest assured and go on my way? Lin Yi suddenly had black lines on his head. He looked at the stupid and cute Little Circle Bear on the side. This guy can protect you? If you really believe this kind of thing, even if you have a few lives, it won't be enough, right? Looking at Little Circle Bear's flaunting movements, Lin Yi speechlessly rolled his eyes, turned around and climbed up the tree. He held his breath and carefully observed the movements of the black shadow at the bottom of the lake. Not only did he have to ensure that it swam to the farthest end, but he also had to figure out its movement patterns. This was the minimum preparation before the action. If he was even a little careless, the result might be a tragic death. This process lasted for a whole hour. Even Shanghai Laner began to yawn, and Lin Yi finally began to move. Now, Lin Yi's eyes suddenly widened, and the full power of the butterfly's subtle steps burst out. His figure crossed over the lake like a ghost. 8 meters, in the eyes of Lin Yi, this distance could be crossed in a flash without the help of any external objects. Now he had to deliberately plan, and even so, whether he could succeed or not was still unknown. Close. The trunk of the fir tree was already very close. Just when Lin Yi thought that he could succeed, the originally calm surface of the half-moon lake suddenly shook violently. Then, he saw a blood-red strip of tentacle as thick as a wash basin suddenly shot up from the depths of the lake at a terrifying speed that was difficult to see with the naked eye. Its target was Lin Yi. Chapter 3900. Common World, House Chu's Villa. Mengyao, Yushu, Yuning, Tang Yun, Xiaoxiao, Guanxian, Xiaojiu and Xiaoke, these were the girls that Lin Yi missed the most, and they were all placed in 4 different rooms, all of them unconscious on the bed. Ling Shan and Qin Tian, on the other hand, were patrolling the 4 rooms, paying attention to the girls' condition. On the day of the Heaven Stage Island plan, after the girls fainted, his underlings followed Lin Yi's orders before he left and brought the girls back. Since most of the strong people had already gone to Heaven Stage Island, the remaining people were the strongest, so the process was smooth and no one dared to stop them. After bringing the unconscious girls back to the villa and settling them down, Ling Shan and the others discussed the situation and came to the conclusion that the girls' symptoms were similar to Xiaoke's. Their lives weren't in danger, but they wouldn't wake up either. If they wanted to save them, they couldn't do it with their current strength. They could only wait for Lin Yi to come back and see if he could find a way to save them. So, the only thing they could do now was to take care of the girls for Lin Yi. But the villa was only so big and everyone had their own things to do. It wasn't practical to have so many people take care of the girls. In the end, Lingshan and Qintian took the lead and arranged for 2 people to take turns taking care of the girls. Although they had to take care of so many people because the girls were all unconscious, there wasn't much to do. 2 people was more than enough, ensuring that there was enough manpower and not delaying everyone's work. Plus, they were all in the same group and their phones were online 24/7. If there was anything urgent, they would be able to get the message and rush over. So many people were gathered together. Even without Lin Yi as their backbone, with the power of the common world, there were very few forces that could fight against them. Today it was Lingshan and Qintian's turn. Lingshan was cleaning the rooms one by one, and Qintian was patrolling around the villa with General Wei Wu and the Purple Lightning Beast. An esteemed Great Perfection Heaven rank powerhouse was now working as a waiter and security guard. If this spread, it would definitely shock everyone. However, Qintian on the other hand didn't have any complaints. The point was that nothing had ever happened to him in such a long time, and every time the guards saw him, they would look at him with hostility, as if they were looking at a competitor in the same industry. Just thinking about it made his balls ache. Look at your sister. Do you think I'd steal your job? Qintian rolled his eyes as he raised his iron hand. In the beginning he was treated as a thief by the security guards. Now, at least he had improved to become a good citizen, which was worthy of celebration. Just when he was bored to death, Qintian suddenly stopped in his footsteps. Not far from the corner, there were 2 people approaching, and judging from the sound of their footsteps, he should be an expert with extraordinary strength. Are you sure those inheritors are unconscious? One of them, an old man with a hideous scar on his face, asked. 100%. Don't worry, copper-robed celestial venerable. If I Zheningjun want to know something, it's a piece of cake. The other person was none other than Zheningjun, who hadn't shown himself for a long time. This guy had his eyes on Mengyao and Yushu. He even sent people to kidnap the 2 girls and instigated the Golden Bell sect to cripple Lin Yi's meridians. He was Lin Yi's absolute enemy. After that, he tried his best to use the Golden Bell sect to latch onto the thick thighs of the Iron Cloak sect, thinking that he could do whatever he wanted and capture his nemesis, Lin Yi. He could do whatever he wanted, and even Lin Yi's women like Mengyao would become his playthings. Just thinking about it made him feel good. But before he could show off his power, he received a shocking piece of bad news. The Iron Cloak sect, an ancient sect, was destroyed by Lin Yi. When he received the news, the ancestor of the Iron Cloak sect, Bronze-clad Celestial Lord, happened to be a guest at the Zhen family. As a Heaven Stage Great Perfection expert, he was dumbfounded on the spot. No matter what, Tai Hall was an ancient sect. Even if it wasn't as impressive and domineering as the 5-element sect on the surface, it still had a bunch of Heaven-rank Paragon experts in the dark. How could it be exterminated within a day? However, the cruel reality told him that although all the disciples of the Iron Cloak sect weren't destroyed, the Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts who were in charge of the sect that day were all dead. Not a single one was left. When Lin Yi brought people to attack the sect, he didn't hide it from others. Hence, Bronze-clad Celestial Lord only needed to inquire a little to know the truth of that day. He also tried to inquire about the situation of the Heaven Stage Island plan. Lin Yi went to the Heaven Stage Island. His women who were his inheritors were all unconscious. This was the key information that Bronze-clad Celestial Lord spent a lot of effort to find out. If Lin Yi was still in the secular world, then even if Bronze-clad Celestial Lord wanted to take revenge, he would have to think twice. A fierce person who could kill a bunch of Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts of the Iron Cloak sect was not someone that he, a Heaven Stage Great Perfection expert, could afford to provoke. If that was the case, he probably wouldn't even have any thoughts of revenge. He would have long hidden in the deep mountains and forests with his tail between his legs. Otherwise, if Lin Yi knew that there was a fish that escaped the net in the Iron Cloak sect, he would bring people to exterminate them. But now the leader Lin Yi was gone. Those inheritors of the Heaven Stage Great Perfection were all unconscious. In this way, Bronze-clad Celestial Lord's opportunity had come. This was simply a heaven-sent opportunity to kidnap all of Lin Yi's most precious women. Since they were already unconscious, he could either kill them one by one or keep them as playthings. When Lin Yi came back, he would take pictures of them and send them to the world. Wouldn't that infuriate him to death? As for Lin Yi's other underlings, Bronze-clad Celestial Lord didn't care about them at all. Without Lin Yi as the backbone, these underlings were completely in a state of disunity. Moreover, their strength was definitely not strong. In front of a dignified heaven stage great perfection expert, what could they do? Chapter 3901. He wasn't the only one who had this thought. Zhen Yingjun was also drooling over Lin Yi's women, especially Meng Yao and Yushu. The two hit it off and Zhen Yingjun personally led the way, which led to this scene. However, just as the two walked to the front of the villa, Wu Qintian was already blocking in front of them and smiled coldly. Someone finally came. I'm sick of being a security guard. You're Lin Yi's lackey? The copper-clothed Sky Master frowned and exploded with the aura of a heaven-class perfection. He said with disdain, "Get out of my sight or I'll make you wish you were dead." Wow, what a big tone. Wu Qintian couldn't help but laugh and released his aura as well. He sized up the copper-clothed Sky Master and said, "I've never tasted death before. Why don't you teach me, ugly old man?" Heaven-class perfection? The copper-clothed Sky Master's eyelids twitched as he looked at Zhen Yingjun in blame. Zhen Yingjun was the one who told him that Lin Yi's lackey wasn't strong. In the end, he met a heaven-class perfection right away. Before coming here, the copper-clothed Sky Master repeatedly asked Zhen Yingjun if the inheritors were really unconscious because he was afraid of meeting a strong enemy. He knew that every inheritor of the heaven-class island plan was a heaven-class perfection master. Now that he came here, he found out that a random lackey from Lin Yi's side was a heaven-class perfection master. How could he accept this? Are you surprised, ugly old man? Wu Qintian laughed mockingly. After being called an ugly old man several times in a row, the copper-robed Holy Lord finally couldn't hide his anger. Because of the hideous blood scar on his face, he hated it the most when people called him ugly. Those who dared to call him that in the past were now dead. Surprised? A little, but you're just a heaven-class perfection master. You don't think you're a match for me one-on-one, do you? Don't be too arrogant, kid. The copper-clothed Sky Master sneered. Even if they were both heaven-class perfection masters, a kid like Wu Qintian wouldn't be a match for him, there was no doubt about that. With that, Copper was about to attack Qintian. He had absolute confidence in a one-on-one fight. At that moment, another Sky-class full mastery appeared in front of him. Lingshan walked out of the villa. If one-on-one doesn't work, how about two-on-one? In an instant, the copper-clothed Heavenly Venerate's expression became incomparably unsightly. Two heaven-rank great perfection experts came out casually. What the hell was going on? Since when did full circle heaven rank become so worthless? The point was that Lingshan was a beauty and she walked out of the villa. Copper subconsciously thought of her as an inheritor, and his eyes turned murderous as he looked at Zhen Yingjun. Didn't you say that the inheritors were all unconscious? Were Lin Yi's underlings all a bunch of useless loose sand? What kind of bullshit was this? Sensing the murderous look in the copper-clothed Sky Master's eyes, Zhen Yingjun, who was already scared out of his wits, almost pissed his pants. He quickly stuttered, I don't know, that's what the intel said. What's wrong, ugly old man? Do you want to fight or not? Wu Qintian said impatiently. If it wasn't for the fact that he was afraid of hurting the unconscious girls in the villa, he would have already made his move. At the same time, Lingshan cooperated and revealed her heaven-class full mastery to the limit. She might not be confident in a one-on-one fight, but two-on-one should be no problem. The copper-clothed Sky Master's aura weakened instantly. He came here today for revenge, not to lose his life here. Tai Hall still needed him to make a comeback. Just you wait, I'll leave my head on your neck for now. I'll take it in the future. The copper-clothed Sky Master finished his sentence and immediately turned to leave. Copper-clothed Sky Master, wait for me. Zhen Yingjun scrambled to catch up. He was afraid that Wu Qintian and Lingshan would stop him. Looking at the two fleeing figures, Wu Qintian curled his lips in disdain. Copper-clothed Sky Master? Where did these clowns come from? They seem to be related to the Iron-Clothed sect, but weren't they annihilated by the boss already? Maybe they're fish that escaped the net. Lingshan guessed. The Iron-Clothed sect was an ancient sect after all, and they had a lot of assets. It was normal to have a few fish that escaped the net. Then what do we do now? Should we chase after them? Wu Qintian looked at Lingshan. She was Lin Yi's woman, one of his sisters-in-law. Before Lin Yi returned, she had the most say. Lingshan thought about it. Forget it, one of us won't be his match, but if both of us go, someone might take advantage of this place. Alright, since sis-in-law Lingshan said so, then we'll let them have it easy this time. Qintian nodded, but from the looks of it, this ugly old man will come back. We need to inform the others. After leaving the villa, copper-clothed Sky Master and Zhen Yingjun carefully looked behind them, relieved that Wu Qintian and Lingshan didn't chase after them. Copper-clothed Sky Master, what do we do now? Zhen Yingjun learned his lesson after being snubbed for no reason. Sky class full perfection wasn't something he could interfere with anymore. What do we do? Go back and gather people, of course. Copper-clothed Sky Master gritted his teeth in anger. As an elder of the Iron-Clothed sect, he was scared back by two subordinates of Lin Yi. It was a great humiliation. Zhen Yingjuan's spirit was lifted, but he was confused. Where are we going to gather people? Wasn't the Iron-Clothed sect annihilated by Lin Yi already? Even if the headquarters is destroyed, do you think an ancient sect like the Iron-Clothed sect is gone just like that? I don't dare to talk about other things, but we can still gather 2 or 3 Sky-class full perfection. Copper-clothed Sky Master humphed coldly. Others didn't know the strength of the Iron-Clothed sect, but Copper-clothed Sky Master knew it clearly. Although the Five-Element sect was the #1 ancient sect on the surface, because the Iron-Clothed sect didn't interact with the outside world and had always been a sect, the outside world didn't know about their strength. If they knew, they would think that there were so many Sky-class full perfection masters. Previously, the Five-Element sect thought that the Iron-Clothed sect was too weak and didn't have a single Sky-class full perfection master. Chapter 3902. Therefore, Senior Apprentice Brother Gold-Robed Empyrean, Silver-Robed Empyrean, and Martial Uncle Tai Yi were all in seclusion to comprehend the heavenly Tao. It was just that this matter was only known to his junior apprentice brother Tai Yi. Now that Tai Yi was dead, the other disciples did not know. 2 or 3 heaven full cycle. Together with Copper Cloak Sky Master, it's more than enough to deal with those 2. Zhen Yingjun said excitedly. No, it's not enough. Copper Cloak Sky Master shook his head and said with a ferocious expression. This time, we must make sure that nothing goes wrong, so I plan to call an ally. The Overseas Cultivators Association, He Luonan, and they recently joined forces with the center. Zhen Yingjun was instantly filled with respect. Ever since he relied on the Iron Cloak sect, he knew a lot about these top figures. Powerful existences like He Luonan and the center were naturally familiar to him. The copper-clothed Heavenly Sovereign and the rest of the experts of the Iron Cloak sect added up to 3 or 4 Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts. If He Luan and the group of experts in the center were included, the number of Heaven Stage Great Perfection experts alone would be more than the fingers on one hand. Now that Lin Yi wasn't here, he could only rely on his scattered subordinates. So what if he managed to get 2 Sky-class full circle? Could they fight 2 against 5? Or even more? That was impossible. Today he rashly came here and got snubbed. This time he should be able to get back at them. Lin Yi's women were all rare beauties and they were all heaven full cycle masters. If he could get his hands on them, tsk, Zhen Yingjuan's heart itched just thinking about it. A few days later, the heroes of Donghai City gathered and Copper Cloak Sky Master made a comeback. This time he called the few remaining Heaven Full Cycle Masters of Iron Cloak Clan over. Master Uncle Iron Cloak Grand Master, Senior Brothers Gold Cloak Sky Master, Senior Brother Silver Cloak Sky Master, and Copper Cloak Sky Master himself. A total of 4 Heaven Full Cycle Masters rushed to the door of the villa. Ancestor Iron Cloak, several Empyrean Senior Apprentice brothers, we've mustered such a large force this time. Needless to say, it'll definitely be a piece of cake. At that time, can you reward us with Lin Yi's women? Zhen Yingjun, who was leading the way, asked shamelessly. The experts of the Iron Cloak sect looked at each other. Finally, it was the Iron Cloak Grandmaster with the most experience who expressed his opinion. Fine, we cultivators don't care about women. This time our focus is on revenge. As for women, if you want them, we'll give them to you. You can humiliate them however you like. But let me say this first. From now on, your Zhen clan will have to contribute more to the reconstruction of Iron Cloth sect. Of course. If Grandmaster has any instructions, I will do my best. Zhen Yingjun hurriedly answered. The reconstruction of a huge sect like Iron Cloth sect involved many aspects. Many things required the support of secular forces. If he could take this opportunity to intervene in it, the benefits and profits would be self-evident. Of course, even if it was free of charge. At that time, the Iron Cloak sect would send experts to guard the Zhen clan, and the Zhen clan's gray business of smuggling and drug trafficking would be very worthwhile. Soon they would be able to get rid of their peers. Iron Cloak Grandmaster nodded. In the past, a small character like Zhen Yingjun wouldn't even enter his eyes. But now that the Iron Cloak sect was destroyed, this was a critical moment. He couldn't let go of any power that could be used. Then Tai Yi Grandmaster gave Copper Robe Heavenly Lord a look, indicating for him to smash the door. Copper understood immediately, but before he could do anything, General Wei Wu and the Purple Thunderbolt Beast rushed out from inside. Then Ling Shan and Wu Qintian appeared in front of everyone. 1, 2, 3, 4. Wu Qintian counted the number of people and mocked, only 4 sky class full perfection and you dare to come here. Ugly old man, looks like you're really a scumbag. I spared you last time but you didn't suffer, did you? Then I'll have to help you this time. The copper-robed heavenly venerate could not help but get angry when he saw how arrogant he was. Kid, this heavenly venerate advises you not to be too arrogant. I'll leave your corpse intact later. Otherwise, That's right, you're just 2 sky class full perfection. Lin Yi isn't here anyways, so don't force yourself at a time like this. Zhen Yingjun added. Do. Ling Shan raised an eyebrow and laughed. Which eye of yours can tell that there's only 2 of us? Open your eyes wide and look carefully before you say that. Not 2? Zhen Yingjun froze and laughed out loud after he reacted. Don't tell me you're counting these 2 beasts as well? What's this? You're just a dog? Wah. He thought that Ling Shan was referring to General Wei Wu and the purple thunderbolt beast. These 2 animals looked decent, but they were only Earth-class late-phase peak. To Che Master and other Sky-class full mastery they were just cannon fodder. There was no need to worry about them at all. Not only Zhen Yingjun but the Tai Yi Master, gold-clothed, silver-clothed and copper-clothed masters were all laughing coldly. They wanted to use 2 beasts against them? This man and woman in front of them must have holes in their brains. Looking at the arrogant faces of the Tai Yi Master and the others, Ling Shan and Wu Qintian looked at each other and couldn't help but laugh mockingly. Aha, you guys don't really think that there's only the 2 of us here, do you? Wu Qintian said playfully. Isn't it? Come on, don't try to impress yourself here. Let me tell you it's useless. With the Tai Yi Master and the other 4 sky class full perfection behind him, Zhen Yingjun was completely fearless. No matter how strong Ling Shan and Wu Qintian were, they were just 2 people who were about to die in his eyes. Oh no, Qintian was a man who was about to die and this Ling Shan on the other hand was a rare beauty. He could let the masters of the Iron Cloak sect cripple her first and keep her for his own pleasure. The Tai Yi Master and the others were sure that the 2 were pretending. As far as they were concerned, it was already a miracle that Lin Yi had 2 sky-class full perfection as his subordinates. It was impossible for him to have more than that. Plus, all of Lin Yi's women were unconscious here. If he had a few masters, wouldn't he have to stay here to protect them? Chapter 3903. As a result, among Lin Yi's underlings either these 2 were the strongest, or the monkeys would scatter when the tree falls. No matter what the situation was, victory was in their grasp, and the 2 of them wouldn't be able to do anything. At this thought, the copper-robed heavenly venerate felt a little regretful. He'd suffered a huge loss last time and this time he'd contacted He Luonan from the Association and the Alliance's core, but now that he thought about it, it was unnecessary. His Iron Cloak sect could easily take care of this. Why would he let He Luonan and the others take advantage of them? After all, this was Lin Yi's lair, and since his woman was here, there had to be a lot of treasures and resources. It was best to finish this before He Luonan got here. The Iron Cloak sect was in dire need of resources, and they couldn't just let outsiders take advantage of them. Uncle Master, senior brothers and senior brothers, let's not waste time talking to them. Let's get started. The copper-robed heavenly master gave them a look. Iron Cloak sect and the others understood immediately and got into position, ready to make a move. Ha, you Iron Cloak sect are an ancient sect, aren't you? You're trying to bully us with numbers, aren't you? Qintian couldn't help but laugh. Iron Cloak and the others blushed when they heard that. They were all respected seniors of the Iron Cloak sect, and it wasn't a good thing for them to bully 2 juniors like Ling Shan and Qintian. Copper-clothed Skylord hurriedly said, Humph, do we need to follow the rules of the Jianghu to deal with Lin Yi's lackeys? It's your ancestors' good fortune to be able to die by our hands. Is that so? Since you're planning to bully us with numbers, I'd like to see who has more people. Ling Shan smiled and clapped her hands lightly, and 4 figures appeared from behind the door. They were Qin Yutian, Feng Tianlong, Pai Jishan and Pai Jihai. Copper-robed heavenly masters group opened their mouths so wide that 2 eggs could fit inside. Fuck you, these 4 are all heaven stage great perfection experts. Even when they heard the news of the Iron Cloak sect being annihilated by Lin Yi, they weren't as shocked as they were right now. What the fuck, had the world gone crazy? Were sky-class masters also common now? Looking at their dumbfounded expressions, Ling Shan and the others couldn't help but smile at each other. Ever since the copper-clothed Sky Master's visit, they'd changed their shifts from 2 to 6, waiting for this day. As for why they were all Sky-class full mastery, that was naturally thanks to Lin Yi. Before they set off for Sky-class Island, he purposely got a large batch of chi-gathering pills to raise the strength of everyone around him to Sky-class full mastery before he was satisfied. Otherwise, with Lin Yi's cautious personality, there was no way he'd leave these people behind and go to Sky-class Island by himself. At this moment, Tai Yi and the others were stunned, and Zhenningjun, the clown, was so scared that he peed his pants, lying on the ground. It was supposed to be 4 against 2, but now it was 4 against 6. What the hell was going on? Tai Yi and the others couldn't help but wonder if they'd gone blind from old age. 6 Sky-class Perfection Masters jumped out at once, and all of them were just Lin Yi's underlings. This didn't make sense at all. You guys said it yourself. It's not embarrassing to bully us with numbers. Let's go. Qintian laughed loudly, charging at the strongest Tai Yi without hesitation. Ling Shan and the others looked at each other and without hesitation they picked their targets and attacked. Meng Yao and the other unconscious girls had been secretly moved to Han Jingjing's villa, so even if the enemy came looking for them, they could still fight back without fear. In a situation like this, Tai Yi and the others could only brace themselves and fight. If they ran now, they wouldn't be able to rebuild Tai Yi sect in the future. They'd have to build a turtle sect instead. Someone like Zhenningjun, on the other hand, was already lying on the side after just a little bit of the shockwave. Ironyi and the other 3, while all of them were Sky-class full mastery and could easily win one-on-one, couldn't take on Lingshan's group in numbers. 6 against 4 meant that there were 2 people who could provide support and sneak attacks at any time. Other than that, there was also General Wei Wu and the Purple Lightning Beast. It was basically 8 against 4. Even if the Iron Cloak Ancestor and the others were a bit more tyrannical than ordinary heaven rank experts, it was still very strenuous for them to fight 2 at once. Being suppressed in all aspects was inevitable, the only suspense was how long they could last. Being suppressed by a bunch of juniors like this, Tai Yi Ancestor and the others even had thoughts of killing themselves right now. They had rushed over excitedly for revenge, but in the end they were beaten up so badly that they couldn't even fight back at all. The difference in their statuses was way too big, and they couldn't accept it in their hearts at all. At this moment, the only thing that the copper-clothed Celestial Lord was thankful for was that he had the foresight to make an appointment with He Luan of the Overseas Cultivators Association. Otherwise, he would have hit an iron plate today and would never be able to show his face again in this lifetime. However, he only made an appointment with He Luodong. As for when he would come, they didn't discuss it. He could only see what his schedule was. What worried Copper was that if the 4 of them couldn't hold on until He Luodong came, then it would be really bad. Oh, you old men are quite strong-willed. I have a whole new level of respect for you. The 8 against 4 battle lasted for half an hour. Although the 4 masters from Iron E sect suffered quite a bit, they were still holding on. They didn't seem to have any intention of running away. This surprised Wu Qintian and the others. It looks like they're waiting for reinforcements. Let's finish this quickly and take down the 4 of them first. Feng Tianlong was experienced and knowledgeable, so he called out to them. Okay. Everyone responded, and the atmosphere was very strong. Iron E and the others were in a precarious situation, and they could lose their lives at any moment. At this moment, He Luodong's voice pierced through the crowd. And this quickly? I'd like to see who's so arrogant. Along with his voice, He Luodong appeared with a powerful aura. Behind him were 3 masters with equally powerful auras. They were all masters he brought from the center, and they were all Sky-class Perfection Masters. The center used to work with the Shenshin Ancestor, and after he left, this resource was transferred to his younger brother, He Luodong. Chapter 3904. He Luanon's appearance gave the 4 from the Iron Cloak sect a huge boost to their morale. They'd been surrounded by Lingshan's group of 6 and 2 spirit beasts for so long, and they were already at their limits. But now, with He Luonan and the other 4, the situation had turned around. This way they would have a total of 8 Sky-class perfected masters, once again having the advantage in numbers against Lingshan's group. After the fight just now, they could tell that while Lingshan and the others were Sky-class perfected, they didn't have enough battle experience. One-on-one they weren't a match for them at all. 8 against 6, and every single one of them had the advantage. They could finally pay back all the frustration they'd felt earlier. Kill them all, don't leave a single one alive. He Luonan smiled coldly to the 3 guests behind him. In truth, he was quite shocked by the sudden appearance of so many Sky-class perfected masters under Lin Yi, but it was also because of this that he was even more determined to kill them all. Otherwise, he wouldn't be able to live in peace no matter if Lin Yi made it back or not. The 3 guests nodded silently and charged into the crowd like wolves and tigers, working together with the Iron Cloak sect's group to attack Lingshan's group. The situation took a turn for the worse. Lingshan's group of 6 had been raised to Sky-class perfected by Lin Yi, but they hadn't been here for long, and they didn't have much battle experience. They weren't a match for these old monsters who'd been in isolation for hundreds of years. They were at a disadvantage in numbers, and the situation had become very dangerous. The key was that their opponents were all ruthless and every move was deadly. They could lose their lives if they weren't careful. The 4 from the Iron Cloak sect had been able to hold on for a while because of their strong foundation, but Lingshan's group of 6, making them face He Luonan's group of ferocious masters. That was too much. Go to hell. He Luonan had been watching from the sidelines for a while, and when he saw Lingshan reveal an opening in her panic, he smiled savagely and was about to make his move. But before he could make a move, several silhouettes suddenly rushed over from behind, each of them carrying the powerful aura of a heaven-rank powerhouse, causing his eyelids to twitch. "Ha, I thought I was late, looks like I'm on time." Yu Bing grinned. Beside him were 2 others, Zhao Qikuan and Zhao Qijiu. Holy shit. Another 3 heaven paragons appeared. This Lin Yi isn't an ancient god, right? Why are all of his subordinates at the heaven-rank great perfection? The eyes of the Tai Yi ancestor and the others popped out of their sockets. Even He Luon had an incredulous expression on his face. A total of 9 heaven-rank great circle experts. What kind of medicine did Lin Yi's subordinates eat? What they didn't know was that this wasn't all of Lin Yi's subordinates. Cheng Yi, the dean, Su Shirhan, and the others were still taking care of the unconscious women. It was enough to make He Luonan and the others bite their tongues off. With this, even without General Wei Wu and the Purple Lightning Beast, Lingshan still had 9 heaven-rank great perfection on her side, facing He Luonan and the Tai Yi sect's 8. She still had the advantage in numbers. Fuck. What kind of monster did they piss off? Why were there so many heaven-rank great perfection all over the place? The Tai Yi ancestor and the others were on the verge of tearing up. They had been suppressed by Lingshan's group of 6, and now they finally met He Luonan. They didn't even have time to relax before the situation turned around again. This wasn't how they played. This was too shameless. Seeing how the Tai Yi sect's people looked like they were about to collapse, it was He Luonan who spoke up. So what if they have more people? It's just a few fake heaven-rank great perfection created by some unknown method. What's there to be afraid of? Kill them all for me. As he finished speaking, He Luonan led the charge towards Chen Yutian's group. Even if they were all at Sky-class full completion, the difference in strength was huge. He didn't believe that the 8 of them couldn't defeat these 9 brats. It was just as He Luonan had predicted. Lingshan's side had the advantage in numbers, but when the fight started, it wasn't that obvious. After all, they only had 1 more person and 2 more spirit beasts. He Luonan and the others were experienced practitioners after all. In a battle like this where there were tens of people, experience was just as important as strength. This way at least they could make up for the disadvantage in numbers, and the 2 sides were locked in a stalemate. Both sides didn't expect this sudden battle at all. He Luonan and the Tai Yi sect's people didn't expect Lin Yi to have so many heaven-rank great perfection, and Lingshan's group didn't expect the Tai Yi sect to call He Luonan. A small city like Donghai suddenly had more than 10 heaven-rank great perfection fighting. If it weren't for the fact that they were afraid of each other and didn't dare use their strongest moves, the entire Donghai would have been flattened. But even so, it was only a matter of time before they were flattened. It was fortunate that Lingshan and the others had moved the fainted girls to someplace else, otherwise their hands and feet would have been tied up, and this battle would have been even more difficult. At first, the 2 sides were still afraid of each other, but the more they fought, the more furious they got, and the more they tossed their worries to the back of their minds. If this went on, casualties were inevitable. Lingshan and the others had the advantage in numbers, but they were still weaker individually. Perhaps they wouldn't lose in the end, but if there were casualties, they'd be the first to fall. These are all newbies who haven't seen blood. They're just heaven-rank great perfection practitioners. As long as we kill a few of them in the chaos, they'll collapse on their own. He Luonan had already seen their weaknesses, and he signaled the others with his eyes, preparing to use his killing move to kill one of them. This was the benefit of having experience. No matter how chaotic the situation was, they could always find a way to break through. If they continued fighting like this, it wasn't impossible for them to kill a master with a random punch. Even He Luonan himself might not be able to make it back alive. But if they could find a chance to kill one of them first, the situation would be different. Even if they were evenly matched, they'd still be able to win without paying too much of a price. Chapter 3905. In an instant, the killing intent exploded, and before the others could even react, He Luonan and the other 3 had already surrounded Lingshan from 4 different directions, leaving her nowhere to run. This change was too sudden, and the others didn't expect it at all. Even Lingshan herself didn't know what was going on. It was too late to run now and she was going to die in the next moment. You're the president of the Overseas Cultivators Association, yet you're using such a despicable method to launch a sneak attack. What an eye-opener. A gloomy voice rang out. Then several silhouettes approached the crowd from afar. He Luonan and the others froze, and a couple of silhouettes appeared in front of them, saving Lingshan in the nick of time. Blood Cloak Ancestor? Everyone's face changed when they saw who it was, shock written all over their faces. It wasn't just the Blood Cloak Ancestor but the Yellow Springs Ancestor, the Yinsen Ancestor, and the others appeared as well. All the top masters of the Blood Cloak sect had come out. As the world's top and most terrifying assassin organization, the deterrent power of the blood-clothed underworld sect was self-evident. Even big shots like He Luan and the Iron Cloth sect paled at the mention of their name. They didn't want to provoke such a troublesome enemy. No one would have thought that their attack on Lin Yi's underlings today would draw out the blood-clothed underworld sect, and from the looks of it, they were ready to intervene forcefully. They didn't come with good intentions. The sudden appearance of the Blood Cloak sect's masters shocked both sides, and they stopped what they were doing. They wanted to see where these people stood. Seeing that everyone's eyes were on him, the Blood Cloak Ancestor smiled darkly. I'm here today to announce a piece of news. Before Master Lin Yi left, he entrusted a task to the Blood Cloak sect. From today onwards, all of his women and men will be under our protection. Whoever dares touch a hair on them will be our enemy, and we won't rest until we're dead. He Luonan and the others couldn't help but take in a cold breath, looking at the Blood Cloak sect's masters as if they'd seen a ghost. Are you fucking sick? An assassin organization didn't go out to kill people, but suddenly came to say that they wanted to protect Lin Yi's woman and underlings. Did they take the wrong medicine? Did they go crazy after being stepped on by Lin Yi previously? He Luonan and the others were still in disbelief, but those from the Iron Cloth sect. At this moment, after hearing the words of Patriarch Blood Cloak, he was really tearing up. He almost knelt down in front of everyone. For the few of them, today's encounter was simply a bitter tear. First, they were shocked by Lingshan's group of 6, waiting for Luo He and the others to come, and then 3 Sky-class masters jumped out. Now they had a chance to break out of this situation, and then a Blood Cloak Yellow Spring sect popped out. How the hell were they supposed to live? In comparison, Lingshan and the others were overjoyed. They didn't expect Lin Yi to have something like this, something that could even take care of Blood Cloak Yellow Springs, making it their bodyguard. Just the thought of it was unbelievable. What they didn't know was that Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect's appearance wasn't at Lin Yi's command, but they came to help after noticing He Luonan's group's movements. They were evenly matched, and now there was the addition of Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect's group. He Luonan and the others from the Iron Cloth sect couldn't back down now. If they kept fighting like this, they would all die here. What do you think, Chairman He? If you want to fight again, I'm more than happy to keep you company. Patriarch Blood Cloak stared at He Luonan with a cold smile. As an ancestor-level figure in the assassin circle, if they really fought, even if they were in the same realm, he, the blood-clothed ancestor, would be a daunting monster. Ordinary people would not dare to fight with him at all. After all, his attacks were basically instant kills. Even if they were all Sky-class masters, they could still fall for his tricks. Under everyone's gaze, He Luonan held it in for a while before saying, "You win, we'll see how you do in the future." With that, He Luonan quickly led his group away, afraid that Blood Cloak and Lingshan would continue to fight without caring about the consequences. It'd be hard for them to escape if that happened. As for the Iron Cloth sect's Iron Cloak Grand Elder and the others, they were crawling away in fear, not daring to stay a second longer. After this battle, Lin Yi's men would be famous all over the world. 10 Sky-class masters at full mastery. One had to know that even the ancient sects wouldn't have such a shocking amount of power. Plus, they had the Blood Cloak Yellow Springs sect as helpers. Anyone who provoked them wouldn't even know how to spell the word death. Even He Luonan had to suffer like this. However, He Luoluo was not someone who would give up after suffering a setback. Now that he had suffered such a huge loss, it would be a fool's dream to ask him to give up. If Lin Yi were still in the common world, he wouldn't be able to win, but Lin Yi wasn't here anymore, and he was still being bullied by his lackeys. That was intolerable. After running out of East Ocean City, He Luonan suddenly stopped. He looked at the people from the Iron Cloak faction and said, "Guys, we've lost so much face today. If we don't get back at them, we'll become the laughingstock of all the cultivators in the world in a few days. You won't just let this go, right?" The Iron Cloak Grand Elder and the others looked at each other, troubled. "Chairman He, so what if we can't let this go? The situation is beyond our control." If it was just Ling Shan and the others, the sudden appearance of 9 Sky-class masters almost made them go crazy, but to say that it was enough to scare them would be too ridiculous. But no matter what, these people were just inexperienced kids in their eyes. Even if they had the numbers advantage, it wasn't like they couldn't handle them. If they teamed up with Luonan and the others, their chances of winning were quite high. However, the crux of the problem was that the blood-clothed underworld sect had suddenly intervened without any warning. Several patriarchs came out in full force. In the face of this kind of infamous assassin ancestor-level monsters, even experienced experts like them were frightened. In their eyes, Ling Shan and the others were strong, but they were just paper tigers without fangs. They looked strong on the surface, but they were nothing to be afraid of. But Blood Cloak and Yellow Springs were different. They were all battle-hardened monsters who killed without batting an eyelid. Chapter 3906. They were all smart people at their age. It was clear at a glance which one to choose between venting their anger or saving their lives. He Luonan sneered disdainfully, "No wonder your Iron Cloak sect was destroyed by Lin Yi. You suffered such a big loss, but in the end you don't even dare to fart. You still have the nerve to call yourself an ancient sect? A turtle sect is more like it." "What did you say?" "President He, don't go too far." The faces of the Tai Yi ancestor and the others immediately turned red. No matter what, they were experienced experts at the great perfection of heaven rank. Being humiliated and ridiculed in front of their faces, even if they knew what was good for them, they couldn't swallow it. They weren't the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Sorry. It was a slip of the tongue." He Luonan laughed as if nothing had happened. Then he suddenly said seriously, "Gentlemen, if I can get a few more reinforcements, will you still want to retreat?" "Reinforcements? How many?" Iron Cloak ancestor and the others suppressed their displeasure and became spirited. "I dare not say too many, but 3 heaven-rank great perfection experts are nothing to worry about." He Luonan pretended to be profound. He wasn't bluffing. The Central's background was amazing. It wouldn't be difficult to find 3 more heaven-rank great perfection experts. Iron Cloak ancestor and the others' eyes lit up. They already had 8 heaven-rank great perfection experts here. If He Luonan could call 3 more, it would be a total of 11. It would be more than enough to deal with Lin Yi's subordinates. Also, I'm sure you've heard of the Black Horse Society, right? They're Lin Yi's enemies as well. If you give them a heads up, I'm sure they won't let go of this great opportunity. He Luonan threw out another bait. One had to know that Lin Yi only had 9 heaven-rank great perfection experts. Even if the Blood Cloak underworld sect intervened, the 11 of them could barely deal with it. When the time came, they just had to find a way to get rid of a few weaker fellows to establish their dominance. Then their chances of winning wouldn't be small. And if they could call the experts of the Black Horse Society, then this revenge battle would be in the bag. One had to know. The Dark Horse gang was similar to the Blood Cloak underworld sect. Both of them had rich combat experience. With the two restraining each other, the Dark Horse gang had a 90% chance of success. "Well, as long as President He can call for more people, we don't mind risking our lives to fight with you." The Tai Yi martial ancestor and the others immediately said righteously. Just now they wanted to admit defeat, but that was because they had no other choice. Now that they had the chance to take revenge, how could they be willing to be the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Even though he was wary of the patriarchs of the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect. But don't forget that they themselves were not easy to deal with. As long as they were not at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, they had at least an 80% chance of killing off Lin Yi's subordinates who only had levels but no actual combat experience. "That's good. Let's find a place to recuperate for a while and wait for my people to come." Yuan laughed. This time he would definitely eliminate Lin Yi's underlings. While a storm was brewing in East Ocean City, in the peaceful West Star Mountain Village, an uninvited guest came with a photo in his hand. It was a photo of Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang. Lin Dongfang, who was playing with the flowers and plants, suddenly stopped. Then he heard a resentful voice behind him, "You're already an old man. Even if you can't leave the village, can't you send someone to bring me a message?" Lin Dongfang turned around. Seeing the appearance of the person, he was shocked and said, Little Qing." Time seemed to freeze at this moment. The two looked at each other for a long time without speaking. And this uninvited guest was Aunt Qing. Back then, Lin Dongfang met Little Qing in the Ice Palace, and Little Qing fell in love with him at first sight. However, because of his special situation, Lin Dongfang couldn't stay in the Ice Palace. In the end, he could only reject this beauty and tell her that he was going to do a very long mission. He didn't ask for them to be together, but to forget about each other. In the blink of an eye, many years had passed. Aunt Qing was in the Ice Palace, But there was not a moment where she did not think about the man who had haunted her dreams. She asked around, racked her brains, and used every method she had. She did not let go of any chance to find Lin Dongfang. However, she failed time and time again and was disappointed again and again. Until she saw the photo of Lin Yi and Lin Dongfang, she finally learned of Lin Dongfang's whereabouts. So she came without hesitation. The two of them looked at each other for a long time. Aunt Qing's face was already full of tears, and Lin Dongfang's eyes were also brimming with tears. Because of Aunt Qing's appearance, his originally tranquil state of mind once again rippled with enchanting ripples. In the end, thousands of words turned into one sentence. Lin Dongfang smiled. "You came." "I'm here." Aunt Qing nodded heavily. She stepped forward and gently held Lin Dongfang's hand. There were no mushy words of love. Between her and Lin Dongfang, there was no need for such things. Although they hadn't seen each other for many years at this moment, there was no sense of alienation between them. Instead, it was like an old couple that had lived together for decades, with tacit understanding and harmony. It gave people the feeling that Aunt Qing had been the mistress of this place for all these years. Now, she just went out for a walk and came back to wash Lin Dongfang's clothes and cook. Everything was so natural and natural. Now that Lin Yi has gone to Heavenly Island, I heard that the wives of his inheritors are in a coma. As a grandfather, don't you care about them? After a few warm days of isolation, Aunt Qing suddenly asked. After these few days, she had become the real mistress of this place. She and Lin Dongfang were an old couple that depended on each other. This feeling of growing old together made her feel intoxicated, but she couldn't forget about the outside world. Unlike the isolated West Star Mountain village, Aunt Qing had always heard about the things that happened in the cultivation world before she came here. Now that Lin Yi had gone to Heavenly Island and his girlfriends were in a coma, although he had a group of people to protect them, Aunt Qing always felt a little worried. After all, Lin Yi could be said to have enemies on all sides. Even if he had many people under him, it was still very likely that an accident would happen. When Lin Dongfang heard this, he stretched out his hand and stroked Aunt Qing's hair. He smiled gently and said, "In fact, after living here in seclusion for so many years, I have long wanted to go out and have a good walk. In particular, this kid has made such a big name for himself. Do you think I really don't care about him? The problem is that the divine strength goo in my body is in conflict, and I can't leave the spiritual spring water here." Chapter 3907. When she came here, she brought the chi-gathering pill that Lin Yi made in the Ice Palace. After Lin Dongfang took it, he had reached the peak of the heaven realm without any hindrance. Lin Dongfang shook his head with a bitter smile. "I thought it would work, but now I realize that it is still not possible. The peak of the heaven realm can only suppress the voodoo and Herculean voodoo for a while, but without the spirit spring water, there will still be problems after 7 days. If even Heaven's stage great perfection couldn't solve this problem, then he could only place his hopes on the heavenly way." However, he, Lin Dongfang, was currently trapped in the West Star Mountain village and couldn't get out. It was easier said than done to look forward to the heavenly way realm with his own strength. This. Aunt Qing hesitated for a moment and finally said, "On my way here, I heard some rumors that many top masters have gathered in East Ocean City. It seems that they are going to harm Lin Yi's girlfriends and subordinates." She originally thought that after Lin Dongfang's strength reached the peak of the heaven realm, he would be able to solve the problem of not being able to leave the village, and then it would not be too late to show up. However, things were a bit tricky now. There is such a thing? Lin Dongfang frowned and suddenly stood up. "Let's not delay any longer. Let's go to East Ocean now." "But aren't you unable to leave the village?" Aunt Qing was surprised. "As long as I can come back in 7 days, this time is enough to solve the problem." Lin Dongfang smiled confidently. At this moment, the East Ocean City was already full of heroes. He Luonan and the people of the Iron Cloth faction had successfully waited for the 3 Peak Heaven Realm Masters to arrive. In addition, under the enticement of He Luonan, the Masters of the Black Horse Gang also came to help, and their morale soared. He Luonan and the people of the Iron Cloth faction could only deal with Lin Yi's subordinates and the Masters of the Blood Cloak Underworld sect. They only had a slight chance of winning. Now that the Black Horse Gang had joined the alliance, this matter was set in stone. Led by He Luonhun, there were 7 Heaven Realm Peak experts, 4 Heaven Realm Peak experts from the Iron Cloth sect, and the experts from the Black Horse Gang. With such a powerful lineup, not to mention the small East Ocean City, it was more than enough to conquer the world. He gathered his men and made a comeback. He Luan Duan led a group of experts in a menacing manner, vowing to wipe out all of Lin Yi's subordinates in one fell swoop. In the eyes of He Luonan and the others, Today's battle was an exhilarating one. They wanted to shock the world and let all the practitioners in the world see their strength. So from the beginning to the end, they didn't hide their strength at all. As soon as they started, they set up a crushing battle formation. The news was sent back to Lin Yi's villa immediately. Not only were Ling Shan and the others gathered there, but Lin Yi was also in the villa as well. Even the patriarchs of the blood-clothed Yellow Spring sect were present. Looking at the menacing scene of He Luonan and the others, everyone present could not help but feel nervous. Even Patriarch Blood-Clothed and the others had grave expressions on their faces as if they were facing a formidable enemy. What do we do? In the end, Ling Shan was the one who asked the question on everyone's mind. To be honest, with the strength of everyone present, including Ancestor Blood-Clothed and the others, it was not impossible for them to defeat He Luo and the others. But everyone understood. If they were to fight to the death like this, no matter who won or lost, more than half of the people present would die. In the end, they would probably all become ice-cold corpses. This was something unavoidable. Speaking of which, facing such a situation, the people present didn't have to fight with their lives on the line because their mission was only to protect the unconscious women. They didn't have to fight to the death with these people. Knowing that he might die and knowing that there was no need for him to do so, if he chose to retreat now, it could be considered a wise move. It was not shameful at all. Everyone's eyes fell on Ancestor Blood-Clothed and the others. Although they were not Lin Yi's subordinates, they could be regarded as his allies. In terms of Jianghu experience, they were far richer and deeper than the younger generation. However, Ancestor Shui shook his head and said, "The blood-cloth underworld sect's duty is to protect all of you. As for whether to fight or not, it's up to you to decide." They thought of themselves as Lin Yi's followers, but to the people here they were still outsiders and they didn't have a good reputation. If they spoke up, it would cause dissatisfaction and internal conflict. They might as well keep their mouths shut. At this time, Feng Tianlong suddenly said, "My suggestion is, fight." Yu Tian followed, agreed. Yu Bing, Wu Qintian, Qikuan, Qijiu, Pai Jishan, and Pai Jihai all nodded, deciding to fight with their lives on the line. Everyone was afraid of death, but to practitioners like them, some things were more important than death. If they retreated today they would be safe, but it would leave a shadow in their hearts for the rest of their lives, and they would never be able to raise their heads in front of people like He Luonan. If they didn't even dare to face people like He Luonan, how could they even talk about pursuing heavenly laws? Alright, we'll wait for them to come. Ling Shan took a deep breath. In fact, if they really wanted to fight to the death they could call for more people. After all, Qing Yi, Su Shihan, and the others were already at the great perfection of the heaven realm, they could lend a hand. However, these people were responsible for protecting the unconscious girls and most of them were girls. They weren't that strong and the people here didn't want them to get involved. In a war the women had to leave. This was the most basic understanding of a man. In fact, Qintian and the others had been trying to persuade Ling Shan to leave as well, but Ling Shan stubbornly stayed and no one could change her mind. They had no choice but to give up. Half an hour later He Luonan came back with a group of masters. Seeing them all ready for battle, He Luonan laughed without a care in the world. "You guys still dare to stay here and wait for us to come? I don't know if I should praise you for your courage, or should I say that you guys have a screw loose in your brains. You're not that naive to think that you can escape this time, are you? I wonder who was the one who escaped last time. How arrogant, Chairman He. I was kind enough to let you guys go last time and you still dare to come back? I wonder who gave you such courage, such boldness." Tianlong laughed coldly. Chapter 3908. He immediately snorted coldly and said, "You have a sharp tongue, but this is the only time you can show off your sharp tongue. Humph, kill them all, don't leave a single one alive." With a command, the two sides who had been waiting for a long time, immediately started fighting. In the blink of an eye, the wind and clouds surged and the sky changed color. Over 20 heaven-ranked great perfection experts from both sides were fighting with all their might. Such a spectacular and astonishing scene was absolutely unprecedented in the secular world, especially in the era of the Hotian rank island plan where experts were scarce. Today's unprecedented battle was bound to shake the world. As time went on, Ling Shan and the others fought with all their might, and even with the help of the Blood Cloak elders, their lack of battle experience was showing itself once more. Qintian, Yu Bing and the others were all injured, and the scales of victory were tipping towards He Luonan's side. This was something both sides had foreseen. In fact, the moment they made the decision to fight, Ling Shan and the others had already prepared themselves for death. However, even if he had to die, he had to drag a few people down with him. When a person didn't hesitate to risk their life, their potential would inevitably be unearthed, especially when that person was at the great perfection of the heaven rank. Seeing Qintian and the others die one by one, He Luo and the others were feeling proud of themselves, but then they realized that something was amiss. These people had suddenly switched to a fighting style that didn't care about their lives. Fuck me. What the hell was wrong with these people's brains? They had no enmity with each other, so was it necessary for them to risk their lives like idiots just because of Lin Yi's order? Had they all been brainwashed? He Luodu couldn't help but curse. Although they had the upper hand in the situation and if nothing went wrong they would definitely win in the end. But Qintian and the others were fighting with their lives on the line. Even if they got the last laugh they wouldn't stand a chance. He would have to pay a heavy price. He Luan Duan himself might even be dragged down with him to his death. Tisk, do you think you can win just by risking your life? You're really delusional. What a joke. He Luanan sneered. When it came to playing with one's life and not being afraid of death, who could compare to the biochemical experts he had brought? With just a glance, a few biogenesis masters understood, and two of them stopped Qintian's and Yu Bing's attacks even at the cost of their heavy injuries. As for He Luanan and the others who were cruising around, they were waiting for an opportunity to deal the killing blow. However, at this moment, He Luanan's eyelids suddenly twitched, and his heart trembled. A person, a plain and ordinary old man, who did not have any true chi fluctuations on his body, nor did he have the aura of an expert. This seemingly ordinary old man suddenly appeared in the center of the battlefield without any warning. It's been too long since I last fought with anyone. My old bones are about to rust. The old man smiled in a self-mocking manner. After saying that, the old man threw a simple punch at the empty space beside him. It seemed that he was not aiming at any target at all. He was just stretching his arms and legs in the air. Boom, boom, boom. In the blink of an eye there were 3 consecutive sounds. He Luanan's eyes suddenly widened, and his jaw was dislocated from the shock. His mind was in a daze. It took him a long time to regain his senses. As the old man did this, the 3 biochemical experts he brought with him all had their chests pierced through. They had become 3 lifeless corpses. Not bad, it seems that you haven't regressed much. Looking at the miserable deaths of the 3 biochemical experts, the old man calmly nodded. The originally apocalyptic battlefield suddenly quieted down because of the old man's appearance. Everyone unconsciously stopped and looked at the old man with respect and fear. Casually killing 3 biochemical experts at Heaven Stage Great Perfection with one move? What kind of strength was this? Damn, could this old man be a super expert from Heaven Stage Island? Suddenly, Ancestor Shui Yi and the others knelt down in front of everyone with a face full of excitement. They kowtowed and said in unison, Shui Yi, Huang Quan and Yin Sen, greet the master. Hearing this, everyone looked at each other in shock. This old man was actually the master of Ancestor Shui Yi and the others from Yellow Spring Sect? Before He Luonan and the others could recover from the shock, the leaders of the Black Horse Gang had already knelt down on the ground. Each of them trembled as if they were walking on thin ice. Master Lin, spare us. Master Lin? What kind of divine being was this? Was he an elder of Lin Yi? He Luonan and the others were even more puzzled. They looked at the people from Black Horse Gang in a daze. These people were on their side. What the hell was the meaning of them kneeling down to this old man? Seeing that He Luonan was about to flip out, the leader of the Black Horse Gang who was kneeling on the ground secretly winked at him and mouthed 3 words, Lin Dongfang. Damn. After understanding the meaning of this person, He Luonan and the others' minds suddenly went blank. This old man was actually one of the twin killers of Vajra Lin Dongfang. Everyone present was a veteran expert. Who didn't know the illustrious reputation of the twin killers of Vajra? Even if they hadn't seen it with their own eyes, they had at least heard of it. In the world of cultivation these two were like gods. Who dared to provoke them? Even someone as daring as He Luodan was scared silly after hearing Lin Dongfang's name. His legs turned to jelly and he almost wet his pants. Hee, it seems that you still recognize me. That's rare. But since you dared to make a move on my nephew's people, you should be prepared to pay the price. Lin Dongfang smiled faintly. Back then the leader of Black Horse Gang Chen Paguang died under his fist. It was not surprising that these experts from Black Horse Gang could recognize him. Damn, it's true. He Luonan and the others suddenly felt their scalps go numb. Just now they hoped that these people from Black Horse Gang had made a mistake. But now Lin Dongfang had admitted it himself. More importantly, Lin Dongfang's words revealed that Lin Yi was actually his nephew? This news was like a bolt from the blue. When they thought about how they were going against Lin Dongfang's nephew, this kind of life-risking matter made them shudder with fear. Listening to Lin Dongfang's words, He Luonan and the others who were just showing off their prowess, were stunned. A person's reputation was like a tree's shadow. The Vajra dual evil's illustrious reputation was built upon the deaths of countless experts. An expert of Lin Dongfang's level could not be estimated with common sense. If they underestimated him even a little, they might follow in the footsteps of the three experts at Heaven's stage great perfection. Don't look at them because they were all ambitious and ruthless people. If Lin Dongfang wanted to kill them, it would be no different from killing chickens. Seeing Lin Dongfang's indifferent gaze sweeping over, He Luonan suddenly shouted, "Run!" Before his voice died away, he had already flashed 100 meters away. The rest of the people who were too scared to move suddenly reacted at this moment. Taking advantage of the fact that Lin Dongfang had yet to make a move, they scattered in all directions in an incomparably embarrassing manner. If they waited until Lin Dongfang really wanted to kill them, it would be extremely difficult for them to escape. Seeing these people escape, Lin Dongfang had no intentions of chasing after them. 1. These people were running in different directions and he couldn't catch them all. 2. He had been living in seclusion in West Star Village for many years, and his state of mind had long since returned to its original state. Under normal circumstances, he would rarely have killing intent. In an instant, He Luonan and the others had disappeared without a trace, leaving behind only 3 corpses. Seeing this scene and then looking at the kneeling elder Bloodreeb and the others, Lingshan and the others were completely dumbfounded. So many of them had risked their lives but they still couldn't defeat the enemy. Yet this old man had actually scared the enemy away with just a few simple words. This was too exaggerated and too surreal. The twin killers of Vajra's name was like thunder to the ears of famous masters like He Luonan, but to the younger generation like Lingshan, it was too far away. But no matter how far away they were, looking at the way He Luonan and the others were running away, everyone could tell that this ordinary-looking old man in front of them was not only Boss Lin Yi's grandfather, but also a world-shaking character. Chapter 3909. In theory, no one could react in such a long distance in such a short time. At least among the opponents that Lin Yi had encountered so far, including Nan Tianyong, the peak late foundation stage master, who was killed by him with the super true chi bomb, absolutely could not do this. Sure enough, it is a place where even the masters of the gold core stage may lose their lives. Although I don't know the true face of this guy below, it is really very tricky. Watching the scarlet tentacle shooting toward him, Lin Yi was shocked. At this moment he was in mid-air, unable to change his speed or adjust his direction. It was the most powerless time. Once he was caught by the scarlet tentacle or even rolled into the half-moon lake, then with his strength, there would only be one end: death. However, Lin Yi did not take this lightly. He had long been prepared. During the hour when he was observing the movement pattern of the giant spirit beast at the bottom of the lake, he had not been idle. He was accumulating strength to prepare a strong enough trump card. At the critical moment, the super true chi bomb that had been accumulating for a long time was immediately thrown out and smashed down. Boom. After a slightly dull shock, the lake gradually calmed down. Looking at the scene under his feet, even Lin Yi could not close his mouth for a long time. What shocked Lin Yi even more was that this scarlet tentacle had obviously been hit by his super true chi bomb, but the result was that it only hindered its movement. There was not even a scar left on it. It was still scarlet and smooth and it was still alive. What a terrible thing. Lin Yi was very afraid. Even the super true chi bomb could not deal with the existence of the existence. It was far beyond his ability. Any idea of fighting with it was courting death. It was already very lucky to be able to go back alive this time. However, the super true chi bomb just now was not at all useless. At least it successfully blocked the attack of the scarlet tentacle, and Lin Yi took this opportunity to finally rush to the trunk of the central fir tree. It was just that this was not the time to breathe a sigh of relief, because the length of this scarlet tentacle was extremely considerable. Lin Yi was now at the edge of the fir tree, and he could be swept down at any time, and this time he had no super Jin Chi bombs in his hands to rely on. He didn't have time to check if there were any other unknown dangers lurking in the treetops. The only thing he had to do right now was, he had to get rid of the red tentacle below him. If he couldn't do this immediately with the speed the tentacle had displayed just now, he would really be in danger today. As Lin Yi tried his best to get up, the tentacle had been watching him from below. Perhaps there was a chance for him to escape. He would immediately strike like lightning and kill with one strike. Fortunately, Lin Yi was decisive enough to move 20 meters away from the surface of the lake. The scarlet tentacle resentfully retracted back into the lake. As the last ripple calmed down, the half-moon lake once again returned to its previous tranquility, and this strange tentacle seemed to have never appeared. Phew. As expected of my little junior brother, his strength is much stronger than my senior sister. It seems that I have to practice hard after going back. I can't be left too far behind by little junior brother. Shanghai Laner, who was hiding behind the tree and watching the battle, was greatly relieved. Isn't that right, little white? The little curly bear also nodded. Although the scene just now was extremely short, Shanghai Laner, the eldest miss, could also see the crisis in it. If it was any other peak early-stage Foundation establishment cultivator, even a middle-stage Foundation establishment cultivator would have been directly killed. It was impossible to escape unscathed like Lin Yi. However, Lin Yi himself was not as relaxed as Shanghai Laner imagined. At this moment he was standing on the canopy of the fir tree. In the blink of an eye, his whole body had been soaked in cold sweat. Facing this red tentacle, he felt as if his life would be taken away at any moment. It was as if he was facing the god of death that had descended upon the world. It had been a long time since he'd felt this kind of fear. What the hell is this guy? It's just a tentacle and it's already so abnormal. If it really comes, how can people live? Lin Yi couldn't help but wonder in his heart. Even if he hadn't seen the true face of Mount Lushan, judging from the huge shadow at the bottom of the lake, this tentacle could never be its full strength. Maybe it was just a small means used to kill prey. A single tentacle was already able to withstand the power of a Super Jinchi bomb and come out unscathed. Then, the strength of its main body was even more unimaginable. No wonder it could kill a powerful gold core stage master. It was really not a small matter. Forget it, since I've already come up, let's find a way to find the thing first. Lin Yi shook his head and left the huge spirit beast at the bottom of the lake behind him. Anyway, it seemed that this thing would not come up easily. If it was in this fir tree, he didn't have to worry about its threat for the time being. However, although the step just now was extremely thrilling, Lin Yi didn't think that after reaching the fir tree, it was already a success. According to the logic that the closer to the treasure, the more dangerous it was, now was the real fatal time. There were often powerful spirit beasts guarding around the treasures of heaven and earth. The unknown behemoth at the bottom of the lake was already a terrifying monster. However, after all, it couldn't climb the tree and it couldn't really get close to the heart of this giant fir tree. This was its natural disadvantage. According to Shangguan Laner, this giant fir tree had existed for at least thousands of years. It was said that when Half Moon Lake was discovered, it had already existed, and its most essential treasure was in the hollow of its heart. Therefore, in Lin Yi's opinion, in addition to the unknown monster at the bottom of the lake, it was very likely that there was another guardian spirit beast hidden in the tree hole. Even if its strength might not be as terrifying as the one at the bottom of the lake, since it could be a neighbor, it must not be weak. He had to be careful. Chapter 39:10. Taking a deep breath, Lin Yi jumped down secretly and immediately found something wrong. This tree hole was extraordinarily deep. When he observed it from the outside, although this fir tree was huge and unique in this area of Half Moon Lake, it was only 50 to 60 meters high. However, from the feeling that Lin Yi jumped down at this moment, it was at least 100 meters away. To be precise, it was about 150 meters. If Lin Yi hadn't stepped on the wall in time to slow down, he would have suffered internal injuries from falling from such a height. Boom. With a muffled sound, Lin Yi landed on the ground, stirring up dust. The bottom of the cave was unexpectedly dry. The visible place was empty. Because the walls and the bottom of the cave were parasitic with fluorescent microorganisms like the ones in Half Moon Lake outside, it was like a spirit jade mine inlaid with fluorite, and the visibility was quite high. However, in this way Lin Yi felt even more strange and vigilant. Unsurprisingly, they were now at the bottom of the lake, which meant that the giant fir tree did not grow above the lake like what they had seen before. Instead, it grew from the bottom of the lake. What they saw outside just now was just a small part of the top of the giant fir tree. It was worthy of being an ancient tree that had existed since the discovery of Half Moon Lake. It was thousands or even tens of thousands of years old. If it was a spirit beast, it would have long been powerful and invincible. Unfortunately, this was just a tree. In the empty tree hole, when Lin Yi was about to explore carefully, a voice suddenly sounded, making his hair stand. I haven't seen a living person for a long time. It has been a whole 3 years. I've been lonely for so long and finally won. Today I can finally be happy. The voice came from all directions of the tree hole, and it was hard to tell whether it was a man or a woman laughing wickedly. Lin Yi's muscles instantly tightened, but his face remained calm. He said in a deep voice, "Who are you?" "Who am I?" The voice paused and then seemed to be a little distressed. "I've also thought about this for a long time, but I haven't been able to figure it out." "Forget it. Let's not think about such an annoying problem. This is a rare opportunity. Let's play a game first." "What game?" Lin Yi's heart trembled. Not bad. Lin Yi nodded. The thousand-year tree crystal was the core material that Shanghai Laner was preparing to use for forging. It was also the main purpose of their trip. According to the records, the thousand-year tree crystal was an extremely rare natural treasure. Only a small number of tree species with extremely high spiritual qi could be found. It could only be condensed after thousands of years of lifespan. It was a priceless treasure that truly gathered the essence of the sun and moon and seized the fortune of heaven and earth. Even in the back mountain, where there were countless treasures, there were only a handful of places where one could find a thousand-year tree crystal. In the outer area of the back mountain, only the half-moon lake had a thousand-year tree crystal. It was evident. In fact, after learning this news, not only for the sake of Shanghai Laner, but also for Lin Yi himself, he had to take this risk. That was because the thousand-year tree crystal had a very rare use, and that was to increase the grade of a weapon during the forging process. Ever since they came to Heaven Stage Island, because they had been staying in the Welcome Pavilion, Lin Yi and the other newcomers had almost never used god weapons. Firstly, it was strictly forbidden in the Welcome Pavilion. Otherwise, if they really used a weapon in a battle, just the challenge round alone would probably result in the death of a large number of rookies. Secondly, Heaven Stage god weapons could not withstand the chi of a Foundation Establishment Stage cultivator at all. If chi was injected into it, it would be destroyed immediately. Therefore, the fine steel staff in Lin Yi's hand had never been revealed. It was temporarily useless, and naturally he did not have the idea of increasing its grade. Even after meeting the Scrap King in the market, although they had an agreement, Lin Yi was not in a hurry to put this matter on the agenda. After all, while dealing with the newcomer assessment, he also had to cultivate the heart-devouring exquisite grass and try to refine the Foundation Establishment pill. At the same time, he also had to be on guard against the people from Southern Skygate. Therefore, Lin Yi had not been idle during this period. However, now that he had coincidentally encountered it, Lin Yi naturally would not let go of this opportunity. In any case, he would definitely need to use a weapon when he fought in the future. If the fine steel staff was still in Heaven Stage, it was obviously far from enough. It was imperative to increase its grade. Under normal circumstances, once a weapon was forged, it meant that it had already been finalized. There was no possibility of changing it, unless it was destroyed and reforged. However, even then, only some of the main materials could be extracted, such as fine steel, dark steel, and so on. Most of the auxiliary materials would be wasted. However, the existence of the thousand-year tree crystal was an exception. Not only could it increase the grade of a weapon during the forging process, it could even give a weapon that had already been finalized a chance to advance. Although it was only once, it was already very rare. Therefore, whether it was for Shanghai Laner or for himself, Lin Yi was determined to obtain the thousand-year tree crystal. The ghostly voice sounded again, "As long as you can win the next game, I can give you a thousand-year tree crystal." Lin Yi said without raising his head. Although he still did not know who the other party was, judging from its tone and words, it should be a powerful spiritual beast hidden in this place. It might even be the guardian spiritual beast that Lin Yi had speculated. However, it could not leave this place for some reason, which was why it said that it was lonely. Since the other party had proposed to play a game, it at least meant that it had no intention of fighting him to the death for the time being. Lin Yi knew that with his current strength, his chances of winning against this mysterious and unknown spiritual beast would be pitifully low. On the contrary, if he agreed to the other party's request, there might be a chance of success. However, it was not Lin Yi's style to be led by the nose by the other party so easily. Even if he could not set the rules of the game, he had to find his way back. 2. Diskik, although your strength is pitifully weak, you're really a greedy fellow. The voice laughed strangely for a while before saying, Fine, fine. You've been lonely for so long. Take it as a reward for you. As long as you can win, I'll give you 2,000-year tree crystals. It's a deal. Lin Yi nodded calmly, but his heart was filled with shock. Chapter 39:11. However, this was good as well. If he could get his hands on it, not only would he be able to satisfy Shanghai Laner's needs, but he would also be able to keep one for himself. It was killing two birds with one stone. Then let the game begin. Before the voice died away, the ground suddenly surged. Then, to Lin Yi's astonishment, the wood that had surged out from under his feet transformed into a human figure, a very familiar figure. What's the meaning of this? After seeing the appearance of the wooden figure clearly, Lin Yi's expression instantly became extremely ugly. This was because the wooden figure that had emerged was exactly the same as him. Although you're ridiculously weak, you should have fought against many enemies, right? Then, have you fought against yourself? The ghostly voice laughed strangely. Hearing this, Lin Yi's voice suddenly turned cold. Is this your so-called game? So what if it can imitate my appearance? In the end, it's just an imitation. How would you know if you don't try? As long as you defeat it, you can get 2,000-year tree crystals. Hurry up and do it, I can't wait anymore. The ghostly voice said urgently. Lin Yi snorted coldly. He did not waste any time and directly attacked the mirror image imitated by the wooden figure. Every expert had a strong sense of pride and self-esteem. Even if they knew that the other party was just a piece of wood, they would still feel extremely unhappy when another person was replicated in front of them. Naturally, Lin Yi was no exception. However, although the other party was just a piece of wood, Lin Yi did not look down on it at all. Since this unknown spiritual beast dared to take out 2,000-year tree crystals as a bet, then the mirror image made of wood would definitely not be simple. In an instant, an unparalleled hot fist intent enveloped the entire tree hole. At this moment, Lin Yi was like the god of fire that had descended, vowing to burn everything in front of him into ashes. The 23 forms of wildfire fist. As expected. This giant cedar tree is indeed extraordinary. Lin Yi praised in his heart. If it were any other tree, the fire would have been unstoppable, even with the pressure of the lake outside. However, although the tree hollow was extremely hot, there were no signs of it burning. But even so, Lin Yi believed that this wooden mirror image was most afraid of fire attribute attacks like the frenzied fire fist. Fire subdued wood, this was an unchanging truth. Boom. The frenzied flame fist smashed into the wooden mirror image's face, sending it flying several tens of feet away. Only when it was deeply embedded in the cave wall did it finally stop, causing a loud rumble. Yo, looks like I should take back my previous evaluation. Although your strength is pitifully weak, your potential is not bad. Interesting. The ghostly voice laughed strangely as it praised. Before he could finish, Lin Yi frowned. The wooden image walked out of the cave wall, stretching its shoulders. Aside from a bit of burnt skin, there wasn't a single trace of damage on its body. He did not seem to have any serious or fatal injuries. Not only that, even the burning characteristic of the 23rd form of the frenzy fist did not appear on his body at all. It should be known that this characteristic was something that even Yu Zhe, a middle-stage foundation establishment expert, would not be able to withstand. Back then they were all helpless. Was this thing really made out of wood? Lin Yi looked at this mirror image puppet, and could not help but have a feeling of disbelief and absurdity. 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist hit a puppet, but the puppet was not burned to ashes. Instead, it seemed to be even more energetic. Not only that, he felt that this was just a puppet that looked like him. After being bombarded by the frenzied fire fist, after the bombardment of the frenzied flame fist, as if it had been injected with some kind of vitality, its body actually emitted a powerful aura that was no different from a real person. And? This aura? Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched, and then he saw the mirror image puppet suddenly fly towards him, and on its right fist, a fiery hot fist intent condensed. This fiery fist intent was exactly the same as the 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist that Lin Yi had just used. Boom. The mirror image puppet's fist hit the ground, leaving a deep, charred pit. Looking at its power, it seemed to be even stronger than the original version of the 23rd form of the frenzied flame fist that Lin Yi had just used. If Lin Yi did not dodge in time, he would have been seriously injured. The fear in Lin Yi's heart grew even stronger. He could even imitate this casually. Who was this guy? Any martial technique must be practiced diligently in order to be able to successfully cultivate it. Even the most talented geniuses could only shorten this time, and could not directly skip it. However, the other party directly imitated it in front of him. This ability was simply so heaven-defying that it made one's hair stand on end. What was even more exaggerated was that, according to Lin Yi's speculation, the mirror image puppet in front of him might not even be the other party's deity. It was just a toy that was temporarily made up, nothing more. A toy was already so abnormal to such an extent, then how terrifying was this guy's deity? Strictly speaking, it was probably much more terrifying than the unknown ferocious creature swimming in the half-moon lake outside. Perhaps only this person could cause a powerful golden core stage expert to fall here. How about it? Challenging yourself is a compulsory course for every cultivator. Humans like to boast shamelessly. Now, let's see what kind of answer you can produce when facing the other you, the ghostly voice said in a cruel tone. Interesting. Lin Yi looked at the mirror image puppet in front of him and sneered, "It's just an imitation puppet, and you dare to claim to be the other me? Don't you think you're too arrogant?" "Is that so? Then hurry up and prove it to me. As long as I pay the price of 2,000-year tree crystals, I'll be able to watch such a good show. I can't wait any longer. Speaking of which, if you die, I won't even have to pay this price." Hee hee, then open your eyes and watch carefully. Lin Yi smiled faintly. Things had developed to this point, and the initial shock had gradually been suppressed at the bottom of his heart. The only thing he had to do now was to defeat the so-called mirror image in front of him. Using the butterfly subtle steps to the extreme in an instant, Lin Yi's figure was sometimes fast and sometimes slow. After flashing around the mirror image puppet for a while, he suddenly attacked it. This time he did not use any martial technique, just ordinary but powerful punches and kicks. Unexpectedly, at the same time as Lin Yi moved, the mirror image puppet's figure also began to flash at the same time. Its movement was exactly the same as Lin Yi's, but it was even faster and purer. Chapter 39:12. In this way, the ability of this mirror puppet was about to be revealed. Because of the unknown powerful spirit beast behind it, this mirror puppet should be able to quickly imitate any move. However, there was a premise, and that was that he had to use it in front of it. The previous frenzied fire fist and the current butterfly subtle steps were all like this. This also proved that the puppet in front of him was at most an imitation puppet, and not a so-called mirror image. Otherwise, if it was really a copy of the mirror image, the strongest frenzy fire 8 trigrams palm would have long been used to deal with Lin Yi. Bang, bang, bang. After a burst of dense and dull sounds of fists and feet colliding, accompanied by the mirror puppet's frenzy fire fist 23 style, the two figures made contact and then separated. Not bad, not bad. To be able to fight with the mirror image to this extent, you are the first. Because I deliberately increased the strength of the mirror image by a level compared to the main body, many people have been crushed one-sidedly. This is really more and more interesting. The ghostly voice praised. Because the mirror puppet and the main body used the same martial skills and abilities, there was no advantage or disadvantage between them. When the strength of the opponent increased by a level, even if it was only a little bit, it would eventually lead to a one-sided crushing situation. This kind of similar restraint was even more difficult to deal with than the natural restraint of fire restraining wood. This was because the things you could do, the opponent could also do the same or even better. Even if the opponent was not a real mirror image but just a fabricated imitation puppet, every time a martial skill was used, the opponent could immediately imitate it and even stronger. This imitation puppet would continue to grow stronger in the process of fighting. When the main body used his full strength, it would become an existence completely above the main body, invulnerable. Lin Yi had seen through this long ago, so he did not rashly use a trump card like Frenzy Fire 8 trigrams palm. Once the mirror puppet grasped his strongest trump card, he would be completely at a disadvantage. The ghostly voice saw through Lin Yi's plan. It laughed strangely and said, "You are not going to use a stronger move? This idea is not bad. Among the 10 people who came here, about 3 of them were able to think of this, so I must praise you. However, even among these people, only a few succeeded in the end." Lin Yi was slightly startled, but before he could think about it, the ghostly voice continued, "Although a 1,000-year tree crystal isn't anything important to me, it's still a rare bargaining chip. If I give it away so easily, I won't have anyone to spend time with me in the future. So, do you already have the resolve to obtain the 1,000-year tree crystal from me?" Understanding? Lin Yi raised his eyebrows and sneered, "You're really a guy who likes to pretend to be profound. What you're trying to say is that I don't have the confidence to defeat you head-on, right? Or you've even thought of this? Your ability to comprehend is truly astonishing. To be honest, I'm starting to admire you more and more. I hope your next performance won't disappoint me." The ghostly voice laughed strangely. His voice fell. The mirror puppet suddenly performed the butterfly subtle steps, bursting out with unprecedented speed and pouncing straight at Lin Yi. Lin Yi clenched his fists expressionlessly. The moment he figured out the mirror puppet's ability, he had already realized that today's battle would be an unprecedented struggle. This mirror puppet was superior to the original in all aspects, and the possibility of winning was next to none. This mirror puppet was superior to the original in every aspect, so the possibility of winning against it was next to nothing. Especially if he used all his trump cards, there would be no chance of winning at all. The mirror puppet's ability to imitate was destined to constantly evolve. When the main body used up all of its strength, and it had also fully grasped the main body's abilities, when faced with an all-encompassing version of itself, no one would be its opponent. On the contrary, if he deliberately hid some of his trump cards and did not use them, leaving the mirror puppet as a half-finished product from beginning to end, then there might be a chance of survival. In Lin Yi's eyes, if the opponent could use the Frenzy 8 trigrams palm like him, then because this was his limit, he would not be able to master it to perfection. Naturally, he would not have the confidence to use it to win against this stronger mirror puppet. However, if he did not use the Frenzy 8 trigrams palm, but the most ordinary fist and foot techniques, because Lin Yi could completely master them, he would have the power to fight against this mirror puppet. This was just Lin Yi's conjecture, and it was also the only strategy he could come up with in this short period of time. However, this strategy only provided a small possibility. He had found a small crack in the secret room that had no blind spots, but if he wanted to escape, he still needed the strength to smash this crack. This was the realization that the ghostly voice had mentioned. Lin Yi and the mirror puppet shuttled back and forth like lightning, colliding with each other. Apart from the 23 forms of the frenzy fist and the butterfly subtle steps that he had used at the beginning, the rest were the most basic fist and foot techniques. Constantly honed since young, Lin Yi's grasp of the fist and foot techniques that he was good at had long reached the peak. Moreover, because it was completely within the scope of his ability, he could display his understanding and comprehension of fist and foot techniques without any scruples. On the other hand, although the mirror puppet was also imitating Lin Yi's fist and foot fighting style, because it was a temporary imitation, even if the power of its fists and feet surpassed Lin Yi's by a level, it was completely unable to achieve the level of mastery that Lin Yi had. This was the mirror puppet's only flaw. This fist and foot battle lasted for a full hour, and finally ended with Lin Yi using his fists and feet to smash the mirror puppet. The price he paid was a left leg, a right arm, 3 ribs, and countless bone fractures all over his body. This was a complete and utter Pyrrhic victory, but for Lin Yi, it was an out-and-out great victory. This kind of opportunity to fight with oneself was something that could only be encountered by chance in one's cultivation career. Not only could one hone their skills in a hardy battle, but more importantly, one could take the opportunity to have a deeper understanding of oneself. Only the enemy was the creature that understood oneself the best, and when one became one's own enemy, this kind of understanding would inevitably be more intuitive and profound. This was an unprecedented perspective, and naturally there would be unprecedented gains. Just like the current Lin Yi, after this mirror battle, he had been reborn. Even as the ruler, he could already clearly feel the transformation that had taken place in his body. Chapter 39:13. In this kind of battle, not only were you able to obtain the final victory, but your strength was also able to skyrocket. Amongst the human practitioners, you can be considered a rare monster. In the last 100 years, there has only been one person who has managed to do this. Your performance is comparable to that of Gong Yangjia. Today's show was truly worth watching. The ghostly voice did not conceal its praise at all. Ramjia? He's been here before? Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. Although the law enforcement hall's hallmaster, Ramjia, had not had much interaction with him so far, his intuition told him that he would definitely compete with this top figure of the 3 great pavilions' younger generation in the future. The reason why they did not have any interaction was because Lin Yi's foundation was still shallow and his level was too low. He was far from being able to catch Ramjia's eye. Well, it's rare to see someone who left a deep impression on me and whose name I still remember. Speaking of which, what's your name? The ghostly voice suddenly asked. Lin Yi. Lin Yi did not hide anything and said directly, 2,000-year tree crystals. Can you give them to me now? TSK, you're just as impatient as I am. The ghostly voice laughed strangely and said, don't worry, I won't go so far as to renege on a debt for just 2,000-year tree crystals. But before that, do you want to play another game? What do you mean? Lin Yi narrowed his eyes slightly. What I mean is, since the opportunity is so rare, wouldn't it be too wasteful to let you go after just one game? As the ghostly voice sounded, the ground suddenly surged again. Just like the mirror puppet earlier, another human-like puppet emerged, but this time, it was not Lin Yi's mirror image. It had no face and no expression. 1,000-year tree crystals. Looking at the 2 dark green crystal objects in the puppet's hands, Lin Yi's eyelids suddenly twitched. He had seen the atlas brought by Shanghai Laner on his way here, and it was the 1,000-year tree crystal he was looking for. The faceless puppet weighed the 2,000-year tree crystals in its hand, and its ghostly voice rang out, let's fight again with these 2,000-year tree crystals as stakes. If you can win, I'll take out a treasure that's far more valuable than the 1,000-year tree crystals. A treasure that you absolutely can't refuse. What do you think? What treasure? Lin Yi asked without batting an eyelid. However, in his heart, he was secretly suspicious of the faceless puppet in front of him. Was this the true body of the other party? The faceless puppet cackled and casually threw the 2,000-year tree crystals to the side. It reached into its heart and dug out a slightly charred piece of wood. This is it, the 10,000-year tree crystal. 10,000-year tree crystal. When he heard this word, Lin Yi's heart skipped a beat. A 1,000-year tree crystal was already an extremely rare treasure, But a 10,000-year tree crystal could only be produced by an ancient tree that was at least 10,000 years old. An ancient tree that could live for such a long time was already very rare. In the entire world there were probably only a few of them. And the older the tree, the higher the possibility of it being targeted by human cultivators and other powerful spirit beasts because of its treasure. The number of ancient trees that could live for more than 10,000 years was extremely rare, not just in the back mountains but in other places as well. Moreover, most of them were unable to produce tree crystals. The rarity of a 10,000-year tree crystal was evident. If the charred piece of wood in this fellow's hand was really a 10,000-year tree crystal, its value was not below that of a star ink stone. A 1,000-year tree crystal can only give a weapon a single chance to upgrade its grade, but a 10,000-year tree crystal, as long as it's used well, can give you at least 3 chances or even more. You can have a chance to obtain a 10,000-year tree crystal with just 2,000-year tree crystals as a stake. If you miss this chance, you might not get it again in the future. The faceless puppet weighed the charred piece of wood in its hand and tempted Lin Yi. Unexpectedly, Lin Yi did not even bat an eyelid. He directly stretched out his hand and said, "Throw those 2,000-year tree crystals to me." The faceless puppet paused for a moment, but it still did not give up. "These are genuine 10,000-year tree crystals. Are you really willing to let go of them just like that?" Lin Yi was still indifferent. "Don't you think you're being a little too long-winded? If you don't want to go back on your word, then give me those 2,000-year tree crystals. As for the 10,000-year tree crystal, it's not within my ability and I won't dream about it." "Oh? You can actually remain so calm in the face of the temptation of a 10,000-year tree crystal. I really admire you more and more." The faceless puppet praised with a strange smile. Then it suddenly paused and its tone became extremely cold. "What if I say no? What are you going to do? If that's the case, then there's no other way." There was no panic on Lin Yi's face, as if he was already mentally prepared for this. From the very beginning he did not completely trust this elusive guy. He did not even know what the other party's true body was. If Lin Yi still trusted it without reservation, then he would be very stupid. You've accepted reality so quickly?" "That's right. A smart guy like you should have already seen that the rules of this place can only be set by me. Since it's my request, you can only do as I say in the end, whether you're willing or not. Otherwise there's only one outcome." The faceless puppet laughed sinisterly. "If I don't do as you say, I can only be killed by you in the end. It's really rare to see a guy like you who talks to himself." Lin Yi sneered. Although he could totally use the space in the jade pendant to snatch the tree crystal, if he did not do as this guy said, only death would be waiting for him in the end. This guy was really a headache. "Why do you have to be so mean? You can use a mere 2,000-year tree crystals to fight for a 10,000-year tree crystal. If such an opportunity was given to someone else, it would be more than what they could ask for. Hurry up and recover. I won't hold back later. I can't wait to start the game." Although the puppet was faceless, Lin Yi could clearly feel the ferocious smile on its face at the moment. After a while, seeing that Lin Yi seemed to have almost recovered, the faceless puppet immediately said anxiously, "If you win, you can get the 10,000-year tree crystal. If you lose, you'll get nothing. Game start." Before it finished speaking, the faceless puppet's figure flashed, and it instantly descended on top of Lin Yi's head. So fast. Lin Yi didn't even have time to react before a heavy blow landed on him. The strength of the mirror puppet that Lin Yi had faced before was still limited to the peak of the early stage of Foundation establishment to the middle stage of Foundation establishment. Even if it was stronger than that, it was still within the scope of Lin Yi's ability. Chapter 39:14. With just one hit, Lin Yi was seriously injured. His body was stuck at the bottom of the tree hole and he was unable to move. Game over. I thought it would be more or less interesting. I didn't expect you to be so weak that you couldn't even withstand a single hit. How disappointing. In comparison, Ramjia at least held on for a while. The faceless puppet was extremely disappointed. Looking at this guy circling around him, although Lin Yi was unwilling in the face of the opponent's absolute strength, no matter how exquisite a strategy he came up with, it would be useless. Moreover, the opponent was a gloomy and cunning existence. "If I just kill you like this, it seems a bit of a pity. How about you stay here as my slave? Although you're so weak that you can't withstand a single hit, if you're used to relieve boredom, it's not a bad idea. It's better than nothing." The faceless puppet pinched its chin and laughed evilly. "Slave?" Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. If it simply wanted to kill him, it would have been fine. But now it wanted to turn him into a slave for him to play with. It was really infuriating. "It's decided. Slaves only need to listen. They don't need to have their own opinions. So let's start by destroying your divine sense." Along with the voice, the faceless puppet grabbed the top of Lin Yi's head with one hand. Lin Yi suddenly felt his scalp tingle. At this time, his feet had been restricted and he was seriously injured. There was no room for resistance. With the faceless puppet's ability, if it wanted to destroy his divine sense, it would only take a single thought. However, just as the faceless puppet was about to succeed, an unprecedented pressure suddenly descended on the huge tree hole. Even the sturdy cave walls seemed to be unable to withstand it, and cracks appeared on them. Who is it? The faceless puppet was shocked and instantly retreated to the far end of the tree hole. It was on full alert, as if it was facing a great enemy. You want to destroy this kid's divine sense right under my eyes. I really don't know who gave you the courage. The ghostly thing's familiar voice sounded from Lin Yi's body. Who the hell are you? The faceless puppet's body began to tremble uncontrollably. At this moment, the pressure that was pressing down on its head was unimaginably powerful. Even an existence like it could not arouse the slightest thought of contending against the other party. It could only barely maintain its body and suppress the urge to kneel in the depths of its consciousness. Just a moment ago, it was still a powerful existence that toyed with Lin Yi. But now, in the blink of an eye, the tables had turned. In front of the ghostly thing, the elder of the North Island Spirit Beast clan, even if it was just a simple primordial spirit, it would not be able to withstand it. It still didn't have the slightest chance to resist. Its instincts towards danger told it that even the slightest thought of resisting would definitely cause it to die a tragic death. Up until now, it had lived for tens of thousands of years. It didn't want to die, it wanted to continue living. Faced with the faceless puppet's doubts, the ghostly thing did not have the slightest intention to explain its identity. Instead, it used its divine sense to speak to Lin Yi. This is not a place to stay for long. Pack your things and leave quickly. Lin Yi was stunned when he heard this. From what he knew, all spirit beasts could only obediently bow their heads in front of the ghostly thing. This was no exception even after coming to Heaven Stage Island. However, judging from the ghostly thing's tone, the fellow in front of him seemed to be no small matter. Without much hesitation, Lin Yi gathered his vital energy and suddenly smashed the ground with his palm, freeing himself. Then, without saying a word, he took the 2,000-year tree crystals that the other party had thrown on the ground. That was not all. Lin Yi did not stop there. Instead, he directly rushed to the front of the faceless puppet. He calmly stretched out his hand and said, "Give me the 10,000-year tree crystal." The faceless puppet was stunned and instinctively wanted to kill Lin Yi. However, under the terrifying pressure of the ghostly thing, it did not dare to move at all. It could only watch as Lin Yi walked over step by step and took the 10,000-year tree crystal from its body. One 10,000-year tree crystal, 2,000-year tree crystals, and the fight with the mirror puppet. Lin Yi's harvest this time could be said to be extremely rich. After that, Lin Yi turned around and climbed up the cave wall with his bare hands. This was the bottom of the lake. If he wanted to leave, there was only one hole, and that was to climb out from the hole at the top. With Lin Yi's skill, it was not difficult for him to climb up to a height of 150 meters. However, it would take some time, and it was during this time that the situation suddenly changed. The faceless puppet, who was originally suppressed by the ghostly thing's terrifying pressure, did not dare to move. However, it took this opportunity to appear behind Lin Yi in an instant, ready to kill him with one blow. Lin Yi's heart palpitated. The other party's speed was too fast. It was several times faster than what it had shown just now. He could not react at all. Fortunately, he did not need to react. Boom. The faceless puppet suddenly exploded in the air, shattering into powder and dissipating. At the same time, Lin Yi successfully climbed up the hole at the top and saw the light of day again. "Senior, you were the one who attacked just now, right? You really scared me," Lin Yi said after surviving a disaster. He could not have defended himself against this kind of attack just now. However, he did not expect that this guy would actually shatter into powder. Only a ghostly thing could do this. Don't be too happy. This is just a toy of that guy. That's why I could so easily crush it with my divine sense. If it was really the real body with the current state of my primordial spirit, I might not be able to do anything to it. The ghostly thing reminded him. Lin Yi's heart trembled again. That faceless puppet was really just a toy made by the other party and not the real body. "Senior, who is that guy?" Lin Yi could not help but ask. "Boy, what do you think?" The ghostly thing did not answer but asked. Lin Yi frowned and thought for a while. He said uncertainly, "I feel that this guy should be some kind of unusually powerful spirit beast. However, it's hard to imagine what its real body looks like." "There's no need to imagine. The thing under your feet is its real body," the ghostly thing explained. "What? This giant fir tree is its real body? Linny was shocked. Even if his ability to accept things was extremely high, he could not help but shudder when he thought that his opponent was actually the giant fir tree under his feet. Unexpectedly, the ghostly thing denied, "You're wrong, boy. There's more than a fir tree under your feet." "What do you mean?" Linny was stunned. He looked at the bright half-moon lake below and could not help but gasp. "No way. Senior, do you mean that even this half-moon lake is its real body?" Chapter 39:15. It was no wonder that even the super vital energy bomb could not do anything to it. If the other party was such a terrifying spiritual beast, it was reasonable that it could ignore that level of super vital energy bomb. "That's right, what you see under your feet is its original body." The ghost thing sighed. "In terms of talent alone, this fellow is considered to be blessed by nature. Even in the entire spiritual beast world, there are only a handful of beings that can surpass it. However, its original body is destined to be powerful, but it also limits its movements. Otherwise, with this fellow's strength, it would be enough to occupy a place in the core of the back mountain." According to the ghost thing's evaluation, the few powerful spiritual beasts in the core of the back mountain were existences that could kill him with a glance. When he thought that he had indirectly fought with such existences, Linny could not help but feel a chill down his spine. The mirror puppet at the beginning was fine, but the faceless puppet that appeared later had a part of the spirit attached to it. It was not an exaggeration to say that it was half a clone of the other party. If the ghost thing had not acted in time, Linny would have been a corpse by now. "Then, how does this fellow compare to you, Senior?" Linny could not help but ask curiously. "Compared to me? It's still far from being comparable to me. However, at its level, it can't be completely subdued by my coercion alone. After all, I'm only a spirit now. If we really fight, I may not be able to protect you. Once it notices this, it'll be bad. So, it's not good to stay here for long. It's better to leave as soon as possible." The ghost thing said seriously. "Understood." Linny did not say anything else. He adjusted his state of mind and prepared to leave. Just as the ghost thing said, although he seemed to have escaped, the reality was that he was still standing on the other party's original body. If the other party reacted, it could kill him at any time. Fortunately, the ghost thing had directly used its divine sense to shatter the other party's faceless puppet into powder. This move was enough to intimidate the other party for a while. The other party would not dare to act rashly in a short period of time, but this might not be long. Linny carefully observed the huge black shadow in the half-moon lake. Although he already knew that the scarlet tentacle that attacked him before should be the vines of the half-moon lake monster under his feet, he could not ignore the existence of the huge black shadow. The half-moon lake monster beneath their feet was already terrifying enough. As for that unknown huge shadow, if that fellow was not a part of the half-moon lake monster's body, but another spirit beast, it would be able to coexist with the half-moon lake spirit beast. Its strength was definitely not weak. If he were to be attacked by both of them at the same time, even with the protection of the ghost, the chances of him escaping unscathed would be minuscule. He had to plan before he acted. However, just as Linny was observing, a black shadow appeared on the other side of the lake. It looked like it couldn't hold itself back anymore, and it took the opportunity when the huge shadow at the bottom of the lake moved away to the other side to dash towards the tree Linny was at. Linny would be. Linny was shocked. He subconsciously thought that it was Shangguan Laner. After all, he had stayed in the tree hole for a long time. It had been 3.5 hours. Shangguan Laner thought that there was an accident and acted rashly. This was not impossible. However, although the huge black shadow at the bottom of the lake had swum to the farthest end, if it thought that this was the best opportunity to cross the lake, it was simply courting death. According to Lin Yi's previous observation, this huge black shadow's activity pattern was that after swimming to the farthest end of the half-moon lake, it would quickly turn back 6 out of 10 times. Furthermore, its swimming speed was terrifyingly fast. This seemed to be an opportunity, but it was actually a fatal trap. If he really acted rashly and fell into the trap, what would happen next was simply unimaginable. Sure enough, when this person had only jumped halfway, the huge black shadow at the bottom of the lake had already turned back and suddenly floated up. Danger! A girl's voice sounded on the shore of the half-moon lake. This was the voice of Shangguan Laner. This person was not Shangguan Laner? Linny was shocked, and then he found that the figure in the air was a little familiar. Moreover, it was a woman. At the same time that Shangguan Laner reminded him, this woman finally noticed the crisis below, and Linny finally saw the true face of the spirit beast at the bottom of the lake for the first time. It was a giant octopus with thorny fangs all over its body. Rather than saying it was ugly, it was more accurate to say that it was horrifying. Just looking at its face was enough to make a practitioner like Lin Yi shudder with fear. This was the first time he'd seen something like this. Giant ugly octopus? This guy has raised a good watchdog. The ghostly thing sighed in Lin Yi's mind. While he was amazed, the familiar woman in front of Lin Yi, who acted rashly, had already fallen into a huge crisis trap. The giant ugly octopus, not to mention its huge size, was at least 10 times faster than Lin Yi. The two of them could not be compared at all. However, because of Shangguan Laner's warning in advance, the figure had already prepared in advance. This time was very little, but it was enough to be the last hope. The figure suddenly flashed in the air, and then turned into several residual shadows, directly turning to Shangguan Laner, who was on the shore of the Half-Moon Lake. Phantom finger? Damn woman. It was not until this moment that Lin Yi finally confirmed the identity of this woman. Surprisingly, it was Murong Zhen, who had been sticking to Meng Jueguang recently. Phantom finger was not only a martial arts technique used to attack and kill people, but also a disguised martial arts technique of body movement. Its phantom characteristic could be used to deceive the enemy's divine sense, and it could also guarantee to appear next to the target in an instant. Although the effective distance was very short, the speed of this instant was unparalleled. Murong Zhen took advantage of this and managed to escape from death at the last moment when he was about to fall into the giant ugly octopus's bloody mouth. Without Shangguan Laner's warning, if she did not instantly lock Shanghai Laner as the target, Murong Zhen would not have had any possibility to escape. But now, not only did she successfully save her little life, but she also successfully involved the other party in a crisis. After she saw the face of Shanghai Laner clearly, she was really overjoyed. From the Soaring Sky Pavilion's highly regarded second-generation cultivator to the hopeless Clear Cloud Pavilion's newcomer, although Shangguan Laner was not the main culprit that brought Murong Zhen down to the ground, there was one thing without a doubt: she was the cause of all this. Chapter 39:16. Ever since she was sent to Blue Cloud Pavilion as a newcomer, everything Murong Zhen did was to deliberately accumulate her strength. In the end, she only had one goal, which was to take revenge on Shanghai Laner, the lady who had caused her to fall into the dust. Originally, due to the disparity between their statuses under normal circumstances, the possibility of her succeeding in her revenge was close to zero. No matter how deep her resentment was, Murong Zhen was well aware of this fact. At the very least, she did not have any chance to take revenge right now. Perhaps after she worked hard for a few years or even a few decades, there would be a glimmer of hope for the day when she could hold her head high. However, Murong Zhen never thought that this day would come so quickly and so suddenly. It was so sudden that she did not even have the time to react before the incident had already happened. Fortunately, her subconscious reaction in that instant had already perfectly achieved her goal of revenge. The displacement effect of Phantom Finger was just a side effect. In essence, it was a real killing technique. Shanghai Laner had never thought that not only would the other party not be grateful for her kind reminder, she would actually bring about such a fatal disaster. She had always heard her grandfather talk about how dangerous the martial world was, but today she had truly learned a lesson. She deeply understood what it meant to have the heart of a snake and scorpion. Until now, she still did not know that the other party was Murong Zhen, whom she had met once. Of course, even if Murong Zhen introduced herself in front of her, she might not be able to remember. It was just like how she had ignored Murong Zhen's provocation in the past. With the disparity between their statuses, if Murong Zhen wanted to leave an impression on her, she would not have had any hope of doing something outrageous. However, this time Shanghai Laner would definitely have a deep impression of her, if she could escape this disaster alive. In terms of strength, Murong Zhen and Shangguan Laner were both at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. However, Shanghai Laner obviously lacked actual combat experience. At this moment, when faced with Murong Zhen's sudden phantom finger, she actually panicked. For a moment she did not know what to do. Very good, that's the expression. Obediently die for me, superior Miss Shangguan. Murong Zhen's face was so ferocious that blue veins could be seen. At this time she had completely forgotten about the threat of the ugly octopus. Nothing could make her more excited and vent her anger than killing Shanghai Laner. Moreover, this situation was simply tailor-made for her. The Half-Moon Lake was recognized as one of the most dangerous places in the periphery of the back mountain. Even if Shangguan Laner died here, even if Shanghai Laner died here, no one would suspect her, a newcomer of Blue Cloud Pavilion. This time even the heavens were on his side. With a single phantom finger, not only did he successfully escape from the fish's mouth, he even managed to reap the life of the Shangguan first mistress. Was there anything more wonderful than this in the world? Seeing Murong Zhen's phantom finger pointing at her throat, Shangguan Lan couldn't move at all. There was nothing that could stop her. However, she had been scared by her opponent's fierce offensive. At this time Lin Yi was still on the giant fir tree across the lake. Although the straight line distance between them was not too far, there was an ugly octopus between them. If she counted on him to save her, it was obviously beyond his reach. The three people present, Lin Yi, Murong Zhen, and Shanghai Laner, did not expect that. At the last moment, the one who saved Shanghai Laner's life turned out to be a guy that no one paid attention to. It was a small curly bear that seemed to have no fighting power. In fact, the small curly bear did not do anything difficult. At the last moment, it just gently pushed Shanghai Laner. That was all. However, it was this gentle push that pulled its owner back from the brink of death. After all, Shanghai Laner was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm. As long as Murong Zhen's phantom finger did not hit a vital point like her throat, it would not be able to kill her. Feeling the sharp pain on her shoulder, Shanghai Laner finally recovered from the fear of death. She hurriedly ran for her life with the small curly bear. She could not remember her opponent's identity. She only knew that she was no match for him. If she continued to stay where she was, she would probably be killed before Lin Yi could come to her rescue. Seeing that her phantom finger had failed, Murong Zhen could not help but grit her teeth in hatred. The reason why she came here today was actually the same as Shanghai Laner. She wanted to try her luck and see if she could get a 1,000-year tree crystal. But now, she had long thrown the 1,000-year tree crystal to the back of her mind. If she still couldn't kill Shangguan Lan with such a heaven-sent opportunity, then it would be very difficult for her to have such a good opportunity in her life. She couldn't let it go and it wouldn't come again. Shanghai Laner, today is the day you die. This will be your burial ground. No one can save you. Murong Zhen grinned hideously and chased after her. Shanghai Laner was at the peak of the early stage of the foundation building realm, but she did not have the corresponding combat experience. She was no match for Murong Zhen at all. Moreover, she still had to carry the small curly bear. Even if she wanted to run, she could not run fast. Let's see who can save you this time. Murong Zhen used her phantom finger again and instantly appeared behind Shanghai Laner's head. The small curly bear that caused her phantom finger to fail was already sent flying by her palm. This time, there was nothing that could interfere with her phantom finger. Shangguan Laner, the lady who made her fall into the dust, was definitely going to die. When Murong Zhen attacked with her finger, she was filled with joy and thought that she had succeeded. However, she was shocked to find that a familiar figure had appeared beside her. Her phantom finger, which was supposed to pierce through Shanghai Laner's vital parts, was caught by a single hand and could not move at all. When she saw the person's face clearly, Murong Zhen's eyes instantly narrowed. She cried out in horror, "Lin Yi!" The visibility at night was low. Even the fluorescent light from the half-moon lake could not change much. Moreover, her attention was completely focused on the ugly octopus and Shanghai Laner. It was normal that she did not notice Lin Yi's existence. If she had known that Lin Yi was here in advance, she might not have had the courage to directly attack Shanghai Laner. Not to mention whether Lin Yi would harm her or not, she would definitely be dead if the news of her assassination of Lady Shangguan was spread out. There was no possibility of her surviving. It seems that during the newcomer challenge I really shouldn't have let you go. If I had killed you directly, the world would be slightly cleaner. Lin Yi held Murong Zhen's phantom finger with one hand, and his killing intent was faintly discernible. Before fighting with the mirror puppet, Murong Zhen's phantom finger might have been a threat to him. But now, with just simple martial arts, Lin Yi could completely defeat his opponent. Chapter 39:17. Murong Zhen was instantly horrified. She was no match for Lin Yi in a one-on-one battle. There was no doubt about that. However, her attempt to kill Shanghai Laner had been caught red-handed by Lin Yi. The situation took a sudden turn for the worse. The shadow of death that had been hanging over Shanghai Laner's head had quietly shifted to her own head. Cold sweat dripped from Murong Zhen's forehead. Time seemed to have frozen at that moment. It was so slow that it made one's hair stand on end. It made one anxious and even terrified. Finally, while Murong Zhen was still in a state of shock, Lin Yi slowly spoke again. "If you don't have any last words, I'll send you on your way." There was no deep hatred between him and Murong Zhen. Hence, during the last newcomer challenge he did not intend to kill her. However, today, after witnessing what Murong Zhen had done to Shanghai Laner, his hidden killing intent had been triggered. Murong Zhen and Shangguan Laner had a grudge against each other. Shanghai Laner did not remember, so Lin Yi naturally did not know either. However, based on the woman's vicious act of biting the hand that fed her, she deserved to die. Scum like her did not deserve to live in this world. Wait, wait. Murong Zhen cried out in panic when she saw that Lin Yi was about to make his move. She was no longer Lin Yi's opponent during the newcomer challenge. Now Lin Yi seemed to have improved a lot. Furthermore, she was currently being grabbed by him. If they were to fight, she would definitely lose. Amidst her fear, Murong Zhen's gaze swept between Lin Yi and Shanghai Laner. Before Lin Yi could make his move, she asked, What's your relationship with her? Lady Shangguan hated Lin Yi, and this was a well-known fact in the Welcome Pavilion. Naturally, it was not difficult for Murong Zhen to know, so she thought that Lin Yi would be her natural ally. That was why she tried every possible way to win Lin Yi over. However, she had never expected that Lin Yi would actually want to kill her for the sake of that bitch, Shangguan Laner. These are your last words? I'm sorry. I'm not obliged to answer you. So be it. After Lin Yi finished speaking, a tremendous amount of vital qi gathered on his right palm. Murong Zhen's arm was grabbed by Lin Yi's left hand. Even if he used martial arts techniques like the Phantom Finger, he would not be able to escape from Lin Yi's next palm strike. Although Murong Zhen could sense that Lin Yi's entire body was filled with openings, her instincts told her that she would be the one who would die in the end if she really thought that they were openings and attacked recklessly. What to do? What to do? He would really die if he continued like this. She could only watch as Lin Yi's murderous intent became more and more intense. Murong Zhen was so anxious that she was sweating profusely. No matter how cunning she was, when it came to a life-threatening situation like this, her mind would turn blank. They were too close to each other. Even if she were to break one of her arms and abandon her right arm that was grabbed by Lin Yi, she would not be able to escape Lin Yi's next palm strike. She would still die. She was helpless and could only wait for her death. Faced with Lin Yi's merciless palm strike, Murong Zhen felt defeated. She was unwilling to let her best years come to an end just like that. She was extremely unwilling. However, the palm strike suddenly stopped midway. It was not because Lin Yi was soft-hearted, but because Shangguan Laner had spoken. Little junior brother. Let her go. Shangguan Laner covered the wound on her shoulder with one hand and comforted the little curly bear, which was dizzy from Murong Zhen's palm strike. She gasped in pain as she spoke. It was a sentence. Lin Yi and Murong Zhen were shocked at the same time. Both of them were a little stunned. She was determined to kill you just now. You don't think she was joking, do you? Lin Yi frowned as he spoke. At any time, showing mercy to the enemy was being cruel to oneself. There were countless examples of being soft-hearted that led to a painful lesson. Even if Shangguan Laner was a young miss, even if she didn't have much experience in the Jianghu, Lin Yi didn't believe that she didn't know such a simple truth. Even if she didn't know, her grandfather Shangguan Tianhua would definitely let her know. I know. If little junior brother didn't come back in time, I'd be dead by now. Shangguan Laner nodded in all seriousness. Then you still want to let her go? If you don't kill her this time, she'll still find a chance to kill you next time. Lin Yi rolled his eyes speechlessly. The human heart was sinister. Even if he let her go this time, a sinister woman like Murong Zhen would only become worse. If he thought that she would turn over a new leaf, he could only say that this little senior sister of his was too naive. Unexpectedly, Shangguan Laner was still stubborn as she said, It's all right, but I still don't want her to die because of me. So, little junior brother, let me be stubborn for once. Please let her go this time. After listening to what she said, not only was Lin Yi stunned, but even Murong Zhen herself was in disbelief. To her knowledge, this kind of thing was simply ridiculous and childish to the point that it was difficult to understand. If it was not because of their current situation, she would have mocked her already. Looking at Shangguan Laner's serious expression at the moment, it was not that she did not understand the principle of Jianghu being sinister. However, even so, she still wanted to continue doing such a naive and ridiculous thing. Even if she had to bear the huge risk of being devoured by others in the future, she did not care. If this was naivety, then Shangguan Laner, the young lady who had not experienced the affairs of the world, seemed to have the awareness to continue being naive. Lin Yi looked deeply at Shangguan Laner, causing Murong Zhen to wait anxiously for a long time. Then he said, Since she's your enemy, as long as you have this awareness, her life and death will be decided by you. Yes. Thank you, little junior brother. Shangguan Laner nodded heavily. All right. Lin Yi did not have any more objections and nodded seriously. Murong Zhen was instantly overjoyed. To be able to escape from death this time was something that she did not even dare to dream about. Initially, she thought that even if Shangguan Laner, the young lady, was naive and childish, she might not be able to escape because Lin Yi would definitely not let her go so easily. What she didn't expect was that Lin Yi would be so stupid as to agree to it. Murongzhen secretly sneered. This shameless couple is so naive and childish. I'll return the humiliation I've suffered today 1,000 times in the future. Before you die, I'll let you experience the true meaning of Jianghu's sinister side. However, just as Murongzhen was secretly feeling proud of herself, Lin Yi let go of her right arm that was being grabbed. At the same time, his figure flashed and his palm landed on her back. Chapter 39:18. Lin Yi glanced at her indifferently and said, I'm just teaching you a lesson. Although I've spared your life this time, I advise you to think about your own strength if you want to play any tricks in the future. If I want to kill you, it'll be as easy as blowing off dust. Murongzhen was instantly furious, but when she thought of his strength, she could only swallow her anger and said, Okay, I've learned my lesson. Originally, she wanted to take the opportunity to pretend to be repentant and turn over a new leaf. According to Shanghai Laner's naive and childish personality, she might have a chance to get closer to her so that she could find an opportunity to kill her in the future. However, now that she had been slapped by Lin Yi, she immediately gave up the idea. Although Shanghai Laner was childish and ridiculous, Lin Yi was not necessarily the same. If she continued to play tricks here at this time, she might really be slapped to death by Lin Yi. If that happened, she would not be able to find a grave even if she cried. Looking at Murongzhen's fleeing figure, Lin Yi couldn't help but sigh. He said to Shangguan, this woman's heart is as vicious as a snake and scorpion. I really don't know if what she did today was right or wrong. In the future you must be careful. Yes, I know. Shanghai Laner nodded obediently. Then she suddenly reacted and said with her teeth and claws, I'm your little senior sister. Even you know something, how can I, as your senior sister, not know? Little junior brother, what do you mean by that? Are you looking down on me? I don't dare. Lin Yi suddenly felt embarrassed. This girl really changed her face at a moment's notice. That's more like it. Shanghai Laner raised her fist proudly, but because of the injury on her shoulder, she was in so much pain that she even shed tears. Because her attention was focused on Murongzhen just now, she did not notice the injury on her shoulder. But now, not only was the injury shocking, but the bursts of pain from it made her scalp numb. Shangguan Laner was not an ordinary lady. After all, she was an expert at the peak of the early stage of the building foundation realm, so a normal injury would not be a problem for her. However, her wound was caused by Murongzhen's phantom finger. After her shoulder was hit, not only did it move like it was mincing her flesh, but there were also sharp barbs on her finger, which was extremely insidious. Even an expert at the peak of the early stage of the foundation establishment realm might not be able to endure this kind of pain, let alone Shangguan Laner, this pampered and spoiled young lady. Lin Yi's eyelids twitched. He hurriedly went forward to examine her injury and found that the wound was deep enough to see the bone. Fortunately, there were no signs of poisoning. Let's go. Let's find a hidden place. I'll help you heal. Lin Yi picked up the dizzy little curly bear and immediately left with Shanghai Laner. After all, this place was not far from the Half Moon Lake. If he stayed here for too long, he could not guarantee that the terrifying existence that even the ghost thing was somewhat afraid of. Would it suddenly attack him? Even if its body couldn't move, if it used its vine whip or a puppet, it might be able to attack him. He found a hole in a tree. Lin Yi then began to heal Shanghai Laner. With the ability of the art of dragon mastery, it was a piece of cake to heal the injury on her shoulder. However, the process was still extremely painful. To prevent the young lady from screaming in pain and causing unnecessary trouble, Lin Yi had to think of a way to divert her attention. The only thing he could do was to find a topic to divert her attention. Little senior sister, I'm sure you understand the principle of cutting the weeds and eliminating the roots. You had such a good opportunity just now, why did you let Murongzhen go? Lin Yi asked. This question was not purely to divert her attention. Lin Yi was indeed curious. It was reasonable for a young lady like Shangguan Laner, who had never seen blood, to not dare to kill people. However, in the situation just now, Murongzhen had repaid her kindness with ingratitude, and she knew what the consequences would be if she let him go. She did not even need to do it herself. If it were any normal person, they would not be soft-hearted. She's called Murongzhen. Little junior brother, do you know her? Shanghai Laner was surprised. She even forgot the pain on her shoulder. She's a newcomer who joined Blue Cloud Pavilion halfway. Before that, she seemed to be a relative of one of the elders in Soaring Sky Pavilion, Lin Yi explained. Shanghai Laner was stunned. After a while, she reacted with an "oh" sound. I know why she wanted to kill me. She's the woman I met in Huayang residence. But I only met her once. There shouldn't be any enmity between us. She scolded me for being uneducated, but I didn't even talk back. So that's how it is. Lenny understood. The reason why Murong Zhen was sent to Blue Cloud Pavilion as a newcomer was probably because she offended Shanghai Laner. After all, if Shanghai Laner did not mind, the others would do it for her in order to please her. Otherwise, no matter how evil Murong Zhen was, she would not bite the hand that fed her to the point of killing this young lady. For a woman like her, it's probably because you didn't take her seriously that she hates you even more. In the end, it's all because of her jealousy. You let her go this time out of kindness, but I'm sure she will continue to look for opportunities to attack you in the future. Lenny shook his head. From his point of view, no matter how he looked at it, Shanghai Laner's decision was playing with fire. She might get herself into trouble at any time. But I still don't want to kill her. Not only her, but I don't want other people, spiritual beasts, and all living things to die because of me. Shanghai Laner paused. Her eyes were clear, because I want to be merciful. Merciful? Lenny was stunned. It was the first time he had heard of this term. It did not sound like it was part of normal cultivation. Grandpa said that as long as you are a merciful person, you can change your fate, so your great wish will definitely come true. So I must be merciful, Shangguan Lan said seriously, which she had never done before. Then what is your great wish? Lenny asked curiously. Shanghai Laner smiled charmingly. Of course, it's to bring my father back safe and sound. Your father? What's wrong with him? Lenny was astonished. He had been here for quite some time now. He was very familiar with important people like the